This guy wakes up in a full metal cage. He has no clothes and doesn't know where he is. When he looks around he sees a lot of similar cages, with unfortunate fellows who are gonna become slaves soon. But Gene actually isn't bothered about this whole scene at all, because when one bandit girl comes to feed them, he just casually stands up and tears through the cage. Like it's nothing when the girl sees how easily he broke metal. She's scared and shocked, afraid he's gonna kill her. But instead of beating her, our boy heals her and finds out she's helping bandits, only because they captured her little brother and forced her to work for them. So Gene decides to deal with all those scumbags right here and now. He crushes the door and sends it flying, with the first bandit all the way through. And he doesn't bother with the fact that he's naked at all. Gene takes them out one by one, leaving behind only piles of beaten-up bandits. The shock bandits don't stand a chance. He is just too fast and strong for them. Finally he gets to their boss, and this scum, despite being considered really strong in this world, doesn't even try to fight back. Seeing how our boy deals with the last bandits, he just begs him to wait and asks what he wants. The professor is watching closely. He sees him forming compressed materialization in his hands. Money and slaves aren't a problem, but our guy just finishes the remaining bandits and comes closer. This bandit boss just can't understand what is going on, and why he can't use his spirit powers, and why this naked guy is so overwhelmingly strong. Gene just looks at him like he's a pathetic bug, and this scumbag realizes he's really screwed, so he starts to run to show his last resort. Cage with a monster, and the bandit boss is sure our boy is cooked now. But when the monster lunges forward, Gene easily blocks his attack. Now this scumbag is really shocked. He's never seen a human block a direct hit from a monster. With bare hands, turns out that Gene has a superhuman constitution. Every person who remembers his face, that's fuel. And that's not all. Next, he pulls out his divine power, and just obliterates the monster with an energy beam. And when it's done he turns back to that scumbag to beat him properly, for what he did to all those poor souls. But why is Gene so strong, and how did he get this power? Well, it all started 100 million years ago. A massive catastrophe descended upon planet Earth, annihilating the entire human populace across the globe. The seed of this calamity took root when a mysterious virus began mutating animals, twisting them into otherworldly, terrifying monsters that were later dubbed corruptors. But what none of them know, what nobody in this entire world knows, within a few short years the outbreak spread so rapidly that humanity lost 99% of its population to the devastation. The remaining remnants of humanity tried their absolute best to hold the front lines and fight back. Unfortunately, it quickly became evident that conventional warfare was entirely useless against these beasts. Driven by desperation, humans began experimenting on their own kind. Out of all the trials, Gene Shidu was the only successful test subject to show actual results, because the only way to save this entire world is to stab back notoriety points and get strong enough to change the story. Alongside him, scientists engineered a countervirus comprised of nanomachines, designed to restore the planet's corrupted environment. 1,000 points. In one single day of being the Academy's biggest embarrassment, armed with his newly obtained unparalleled abilities, Gene became the superhuman savior of this world, always attempting to protect the last surviving pockets of humanity. Ultimately, however, it was all in vain. They were simply too late. And the next morning, he walks into class and every single person recognizes him, and eventually even the final human survivors perished. With no one left to protect, Jin's existence seemed stripped of its purpose. Brothers got cancelled in school, and then this blonde kid Park and Juan, having failed the very task he was created for. Or at least that's what his scientist friend Kagura believed. Gene held a fundamentally different perspective. There was still a reason to keep going. Even if he couldn't save the present population, he remained confident that his powers could benefit future generations. With the nanomachines already hard at work, purging the corruptor's influence from the environment, he was optimistic that the Earth would eventually be restored, and he was willing to wait for that day. Consequently, Kagura placed him inside a hibernation capsule, designed to keep him alive for the centuries to come. While Gene slept peacefully in stasis, the monsters continued to ravage the planet. Yet, as decades turned into centuries and centuries blurred into millennia, the shift in the global environment finally began to compound exponentially. To sit at his table, she hates our boy because he's hoarding the dude she likes. Those extraordinarily mutated creatures gradually began to deteriorate. making way for new species to thrive. This cycle of evolution continued for 100 million years, eventually bringing us to a scene where a trio of newly evolved humanoid beings is desperately trying to outpace a terrifying monster. The frantic survivors stumble across an ancient ruin and quickly duck inside to take cover. The relentless demonic beast barges right into the facility after them, backed into a corner with nowhere left to run. The trio is essentially ready to become a satiating dinner for the creature, then launches it with precision, firing straight into the training dummy and blows it apart completely. The same students who were laughing at him yesterday. In a final desperate plea, the girl in the group cries out for help, praying for the village's guardian god to rescue them. One of them says he's not totally terrible. Another says he's way better than they expected. Miraculously, her words are heard, triggering the awakening of our boy, who had been sleeping in the capsule right behind them. For 100 million years, the ancient human unleashes an energy beam. Just showed more growth than some of these kids have shown in an entire year, bullseyeing the monster on the spot. The confused trio has no clue what the hell just happened, and the situation only gets more messed up when a butt-naked man pops out of nowhere. The very first thing this naked Chad does is look for his clothes, which are neatly preserved in an indestructible lockbox his friend Kagura had developed after booting up the lab's ancient systems. He discovers he has basically speed run 100 million years into the future. Although the passing of eons has corrupted most of the data, it's an absolute miracle the machines are functional at all. Excited Kim explains that he's elementless manifestation still. The other guy says everyone at the academy already knows that. So SEO June is going to be the main and the rest are support. If they really want to get first place, it appears the nanomachines virus Kagura created did exactly what it was supposed to. They need to be better than you, or his team right after that, annihilating the corruptors which help preserve the facility. He also finds a communication cube left behind by his old friend, though its contents remain a mystery for now. He then turns toward the humanoid locals, completely forgetting his manhood is just dangling in the breeze. Realizing there are literal kids staring at him in the buff, he quickly gets dressed, restoring the same fresh look he rocked millions of years ago, using all her mana everyone, even the teacher. A short while later he exits the facility with the trio, only to be instantly blinded by the intense sun, shining above the horizon. Truthfully, he wasn't expecting such a vibrant sight. The view before him is nothing short of magnificent, a stark contrast to the apocalyptic wasteland he once knew. Kids immediately start heading back toward their settlement, insisting that their guardian god follow them. Thinking back, the teacher realizes that before, he was so focused on materialization that he couldn't cast properly. Our boy, on the other hand, is far too preoccupied, trying to figure out exactly what kind of species he is dealing with. He's casting perfectly and with control. It's not easy to spot your own mistakes at that age. After all, humanity should technically be fossil fuel by now. These humanoids with distinct animal traits must be the result of millions of years of evolution. And that wraps up today's class and everyone goes to rest. Before Kim can leave, the teacher calls him over to congratulate him, and the boy says he's been training in his free time, mixed with the continuous interference of nanomachines. Not to mention, these guys are speaking the exact same language used by humans eons ago, heavily implying they branched off from the exact same root. Then she asks about mana cultivation. If he's been doing it regularly, the kid realizes she noticed his low mana capacity compared to his skill level. He introduces himself as Jin Shidu, requesting that they just use his first name in return. The girl with goat ears introduces herself as Hakama Phil. The koala-looking dude is Dampa, and the cat girl beside him is Shandy. And the teacher gives him a bracelet that helps with mana breathing. To keep his condition steady, Hakama decides to save the rest of the pleasantries for later, and begins dragging Jean along, explaining that her village is just around the corner. The mage feels a little awkward accepting it, but the teacher says it's fine. It's F-class and not hard to make. He's incredibly desperate to bring their newfound guardian god home, so he can fend off the current invaders. Tragically, by the time they arrive, the village has already been raided and devastated, with multiple settlements completely engulfed in flames. Shandy absolutely loses it at the catastrophic sight, and rushes ahead in sheer panic to find her mother. As they survey the damage, Jean takes a moment to contemplate their dire situation. He immediately notices how flimsy the town's fortifications are. both the boundary walls and the houses are constructed from simple wood. This detail alone makes it glaringly obvious that this new civilization is technologically way behind the human era he remembers. The next morning the kid is running because he almost showed up late. Lisa is the first time they're all together, so they better give it their all. Pushing deeper into the village, Jean spots a woman actively fighting off a bizarre monster. From just a single glance, it's obvious she's barely holding her own. It doesn't take long for him to realize that the creature she's facing looks identical to the corruptors from millions of years ago. Furthermore, the surviving corruptors aren't the only unusual thing here. The guy asks if the low-level kid can even handle it, because he was awful in the test. Our boy realizes he's being messed with and keeps a straight face. Then Jung says it doesn't matter. Little Hakama apparently knows some kind of magic technique that makes her physically glow, because Lee brought him in and he'll look after the little guy. And Kim knows. Ultimately her intervention proves unnecessary. Jean dashes forward and effortlessly knocks the living daylights out of the monster with a single devastating kick. He also knows Yun's moment is gonna take a while, probably because he joined the group and changed how things went in the past. Moving swiftly, he scoops up the injured older woman in his arms and dashes out of the danger zone, leaving little Hakama a clear opening to deliver the finishing blow. Channeling her magic, she unleashes a tiny fireball that packs a massive punch, officially putting the monster down for the count. Observing the dead creature, Jean confirms his theory the atmospheric nanomachines have indeed stripped these monsters of their legendary healing abilities. What he doesn't understand, however, is how a local girl was able to wield those same nanomachines. The more points you get and about class balancing, the lower your teammates' level compared to yours, the more individual points you'll earn finally. Artificial dungeons have a special contribution system. The more you help your team, the more points you get. Everyone should be careful. His educated guess is that these folks draw nanomachines particles directly from the atmosphere and channel them into offensive spells, much like he does. The glaring catch is that historically, only pure humans were capable of manipulating that technology. The excitement is huge. Mr. Jang goes back to the camera room after sending the students off, and everyone was waiting for him to place bets on the best team. But obviously everyone's betting on Yura's team. He directly expresses his curiosity to the woman he just saved, wondering if everyone in this era possesses such magic. She isn't entirely sure what he's getting at, but she clarifies that only a select handful of people can actually wield this ability. In their culture, it is believed that individuals blessed with divine powers are the only ones privileged enough to use this magic. In their specific village, there are no more than 4 people who hold this distinction. Only the teacher bets on Team 3, Lee Seo Jun's team. Both teams picked up low class members for the extra points, but the gap between them is big. Then the teacher explains that Lee's team members are unstable, and even he has limits considering he uses enhancement. That kind of magic is built for close-range fighting, so it's hard to deal with multiple enemies without a team. Meanwhile, Yu's team uses AoE magic and has already reached the middle of the first floor. Jean doesn't have to think too hard to piece it together. Divine powers is just their primitive, fancy way of explaining nanomachines manipulation. At the same time, Lee takes down a huge monster with his sword. The group keeps moving through the dungeon. Akuma rushes over to the older woman, who turns out to be her grandmother. Anxiously inquires about the rest of the villagers, only to learn they have already evacuated. Surrounded by rats and smoke, Shin and Jung comment that their leader fights really well. They must already be halfway through, and they wonder what the boss will be. This statement washes a wave of relief over the trio, though the grandmother is deeply worried about why the kids returned to the dangerous village instead of evacuating with everyone else. After all, she asks Lee what he thinks is going to show up. He says a giant wolf. Shin asked how the hell the kid knows that. The other guy just says he has his ways, but the truth is he's already lived through this. Shin thinks he's a total compulsive liar. The beast they just fought was merely a larva compared to the massive adult monster currently terrorizing the area. Suddenly a voice of reason penetrates through the tension, assuring the old lady that there is absolutely nothing to fret about. That giant invader she mentioned. This newcomer confidently claims he can slaughter it single-handedly. But the truth is there's something on the ground. It's a blue magic circle and he doesn't know what kind it is. The grandmother is shocked to see these familiar faces, back in the war zone, and immediately questions the man about the other villagers. Blue-haired warrior confirms that the rest of the civilians have safely reached the shelter. Freaked out Yoon asks if it's dangerous, but Shin thinks they wouldn't put anything actually dangerous there. Kim crouches down and his teammate tells him to be really careful. The kid says he's just checking, and he says it's not dangerous for them. As it turns out, the older man accompanying this blue-haired guy is actually Hakuma's father. The two share an emotional reunion. Naturally, he demands to know where she ran off to. The girl honestly admits she went straight to the sealed door, much to the grandmother's absolute shock. It's just a simple barrier. The chubby guy asks how he knows. The truth is the kid saw this exact barrier unfold in his past life. So he puts his hand into the light and nothing happens. Shin gets nervous and says he knew that, too confused. Young asks if they'll have to turn back because they can't get through. The older woman is furious that Hakuma wandered into that god-forsaken territory. And Yoon asks if there's another way. Lee tells everyone to step back. According to local legend, the domain beyond that door belongs strictly to the guardian god of the village, because little Hakuma felt utterly threatened by the monster invasion, because he's going to try cutting it with his sword. His strike is insanely strong and focused. It leaves a visible crack in the magic barrier. Everyone gets excited and celebrates because it worked. She explains she simply went to seek the deity's help, and as she proudly points out, the literal god from their legends is standing right beside her. Understandably, the grandmother is highly skeptical, flat out refusing to acknowledge this random young lad as their divine protector. Even worse, based on his appearance, they assume our boy belongs to an inferior species, making the idea of granting him such a sacred title downright ridiculous. Stepping in, little Shandy tries to convince her blue-haired brother that Jean is the real deal. Outsiders benefit and reads the magic formula. A bunch of info pops up in a window like the location. In response, her highly prejudiced brother is quick to dismiss her claims, pointing specifically to Jin's ordinary human ears. In their society, anyone who doesn't inherit distinct animal traits is classified as a lesser being. Floor difficulty and the boss. Then he focuses his skills on the circle and that's it. The barrier starts slowly lowering. All hype, the outsider says he did it, and everyone's shocked because it was way too fast. As far as this guy can tell, his little sister is just operating under a massive, naive misunderstanding still. The little girl stands her ground, proudly, revealing that this man easily defeated the invader chasing them. Unimpressed, her brother brushes the feet off. The character Lee Seo Jun is surprised and interested. That's another 5,000 points for interest. Level 1, and the kid's confused by that. But before the team can celebrate, a huge creepy wolf shows up with this evil red aura. It's the first floor boss, the giant wolf already charging in, arrogantly claiming he could take down an invader just as easily, turning his attention to our hero, who already looks utterly exhausted by all this unwarranted crap. Lee steps up to the front and raises his glowing sword at the beast. He swings this massive long slash and the animal gets wrecked. The blue-haired warrior threatens the intruder, telling him to leave the village immediately, because they have no room to accommodate a being of inferior blood. Split clean in half, just like you'd expect from him hunting a boss, like it's some random mob. And finally the mission's over. The upper just walks right past Jean, still running his mouth. He's so painfully full of himself that he voluntarily takes on the suicidal job of killing the giant invader all by himself. By the way, this arrogant bluehead goes by the name SARS. Grandmother becomes visibly distressed by the reckless, spur-of-the-moment decision SARS just made. You is seriously scary. She did it in 4 hours and 11 minutes, and if they'd been 2 minutes slower. She then turns her attention back to Jean. Even though she still couldn't care less about who he actually is, she admits it would be incredibly rude not to express her genuine gratitude for him saving her life. Following her thanks, she asks for one final favor, to help escort the kids back to the safety of the shelter. They wouldn't have made it. The two have a cute little moment, and the leader says if the barrier hadn't been broken so fast, they would have been way behind. He says he should have done better, while she goes to ensure SARS doesn't throw his life away. Due to sheer arrogance, unsurprisingly, our boy flat out refuses to comply. They directly questioned his pride, and he certainly isn't going to just stand there and let them trample all over it. There's still time for the team to turn things around. Suddenly someone calls out to the student. Kim Sun-woo. He turns around and sees it's the support magic teacher. She came to make him an offer. He decides he's gonna make damn sure they realize he isn't some useless bystander, and he is definitely not an inferior species. Transfer to the support department right now. At first he's confused, then he says he doesn't want that the teacher shocked. The scene rightfully transitions to the nearby lake, which is currently harboring the grotesque massive monster. He turned her down without even hearing the terms, which are a special talent scholarship worth 5 million. SARS has finally arrived on the scene, and the dude doesn't so much as flinch, before dropping into a combat stance. While his classmates ask if he's insane, they say the kid is awful at manifestation magic. With his spear and body charged with crackling Zeus-like thunder, he executes a lightning-fast sprint toward the beast. In an effort to counterattack, the vile creature quite literally uses its own offspring as projectile weapons. Luckily, these unnurtured, slimy larvae are easy targets for SAR's electrified spear. The scary girl is surprised by that. Somewhere else, a girl walking by notices someone interesting. With the path cleared, SARS capitalizes on the opening, leaping high off the ground to deliver a devastating slash directly across the bastard's face. The monster screeches out loud in sheer agony. Of course, we all know it couldn't possibly be that easy, and we'd be right. And then she asks if he's cleaning. Our super disciplined guy says he was dirty, so he cleaned up. The weird girl says that's really cool of him. To SARS's utter dismay, the monster's deep gaping wound immediately begins to regenerate. The sudden shock paralyzes the blue-haired warrior, leaving him wide open for a lethal counterattack. He has no time to dodge, but exactly as expected, Jean intervenes at the last second, effortlessly blocking the massive strike like it's no big deal. Truth is, the mage was only cleaning to get an achievement still. At least it's done. SARS, the once unshakably arrogant fool, is suddenly hit with a massive reality check, and the show is just getting started. Somehow someone's watching The Outsider from far away, and today's class is about monsters. There are humanoids, beasts, flying types, and a bunch more. The monster leaps back to launch another strike, with double the previous force. But the most dangerous of all are the demonized. After saying that, the professor asks if anyone knows why. My guy, however, doesn't even grant the creature the opportunity to swing. With just a casual snap of his fingers, Jean blasts a clean hole right through the monster's flesh. They're impossible to tell apart from humans. That's right, they still drink human life fluid and control monsters. The cocky runt can only watch the spectacular display in stunned silence. Basically a nightmare for society, and since they look just like humans, soon after the rest of the group comes rushing toward the water's edge. They haven't even finished catching their breath from the crazy sprint before their jaws hit the floor. All over again, watching our boy block the colossal monster with a single hand. As the monster continues trying to apply immense force, Jean genuinely starts getting bored of the exchange. Deciding to wrap things up ASAP, he grabs SARS by the waist and leaps out of the way. By the time the camera pans out, we witness the massive monster completely pierced through and through by Jin's energy. SARS frantically argues that big, flashy attacks are useless. If the monster can just infinitely regenerate, it goes up to 200s, but thanks to nature's blessing, thankfully, Jean has already taken that exact variable into consideration. This is precisely where the nanomachines come in handy, which jump 12. The kid gained another 300s. All that training in his free time is finally paying off. Then out of nowhere he notices nature's blessing leveled up to class 2, actively neutralizing the monster's cellular regeneration. The damage SARS inflicted earlier was actually quite considerable, but the cut was far too shallow to overload the creature's healing factor. The cooldown is long, but his mana regenerates fast. Recovery goes up 1000 for 1 minute. By now SARS is practically having a mental breakdown, just processing the sheer possibility that this inferior guy, still he can only use it once a day. Kim loves being a manifestation type, might actually be their guardian god. Humorously, Jean quickly denies having any divine roots that would qualify him for such a grandiose. Breaking barriers is only good for outsiders, because you can't create them, but the scholarship would be really nice. Title: What he does know for a fact is that the entire reason for his continued existence, to safeguard the people of the future, and slaughter the very monsters standing in front of him. Being a student means being broke. Still, the mage figures there's a quick way to make money with short runs. Enraged, the beast snarls and wildly swings its massive tail. desperately trying to squash the agile hero, who keeps slipping through its defenses like water. Having quickly formulated a winning strategy, Jean proceeds to completely immobilize the creature by trapping it in dense yellow ice crystals, so he can't get permission, and it's like a light bulb goes off in the brat's head as he charges up a critical hit, guaranteed to obliterate the beast into smithereens. That night, someone tells the teachers they saw an impressive student today. He finally gives a proper introduction. He declares himself a monster, born directly from humanity's own tragic foolishness. He is a relic who has survived through 100 million years of sleep, the designated weapon, supposed to cleanse the earth of this horrific menace. Kim Sun-woo, a second year, came in early in the morning and was cleaning happy. The teacher adds that he's always really focused and participates in class. The female teacher says that's just how manifestation kids are. Someone tried to pull him out of it. SARS isn't exactly in a position to comprehend what the hell this guy is mumbling about, but the only thing he cares about right now is whether Jean can actually live up to his massive claims. But the outsider wasn't going to fall for that so easily. Still, it's great to see an active, pleasant student these days. Meanwhile, the brat is racking his brain. Well, of course Jean can. After all, he is the literal culmination of countless brutal, tragic experiments, a weapon prepared beyond imagination. Born from humanity's blood-stained history, he is the first, last, and only true human remaining in this world. With his introduction thoroughly complete, Jean unleashes an energy attack so blindingly intense that it instantly incinerates the monster. The beam is so unfathomably powerful that it shoots straight through the Earth's atmosphere and pierces the vacuum of space, guaranteeing zero chance for the bastard to ever regrow. With the monster definitively dead and dusted, SARS completely loses the will to speak, having just had his inflated arrogance thoroughly shoved right back in his face. Meanwhile, unseen by the group, there seems to be someone keeping a very close eye on our boy. From the bushes, this mysterious woman was originally sent merely to surveil the new type of invader. Reported at the lake, she certainly didn't realize she'd be lucky enough to witness an entirely different kind of monster in action. As far as she's concerned, even the elite top brass of the Holy Knights back in the royal capital wouldn't dare go solo against such a colossal threat. To protect him during his fight, a creepy voice calls him by name and says he's welcome to the Tower of Trials. Yet this unknown young gun just made it look like an absolute piece of cake. The kid can go up to floor 27. The voice asks which one he wants. The spy is so hyped that she literally cannot contain her excitement to relay everything she just witnessed back to her guild. Doing it again will reduce the rewards. Excited, the young guy doesn't care and wants to go anyway. Later that day, Jean finally listens to the million-year-old holographic message because his goal is something else. Portals are a convenient way to move between floors and towers. His friend Kagura left behind for him. His digital buddy kicks things off by acknowledging that millions of years must have passed by the time Jean actually watches this. Because of this massive time jump, Kagura desperately wonders what the future of Earth looks like. It's tough, so a lot of people avoid it. Kim walks in and immediately runs into a giant wolf, and whether the planet's environment has actually healed. Right off the bat, he delivers the bad news. The evil corruptors will never truly go extinct, even if the world itself drastically recovers. But one simple well-placed spell from him wipes the beast out, because the monsters that show up there are weak, and Kim gets the first hunt achievement. And honestly, that fact is already pretty evident, since Jean literally just finished fighting one. Kagura reveals that while Jean was in deep hibernation, he periodically entered cold sleep himself, just to observe the gradual changes happening across the globe. Thanks to the environmental restoration, the overall number of corruptors was steadily decreasing. Unfortunately, as the ecosystem shifted, the corruptors began to evolve right alongside it. This adaptation was a glaring sign that the world would never be able to completely rid itself of this menace. To counter this, Kagura explains that he intentionally, genetically edited the newly emerging life forms, giving them the potential to resist the corruptors, rather than just falling prey to them. As soon as he finds the exact spot, he puts his hand on the wall, glowing gold, and then another achievement, Professional Barrier Breaker. On top of that, Kagura reveals he left behind a massive power-up specifically for our boy. Yep, that ominous syringe. full of glowing green liquid is exactly what Jean needs to inject directly into his veins. And of course our champ gets yet another achievement. Mystery Explorer worth 5,000 points. Upon doing so, Jin's body immediately begins to crackle and radiate with arcane energy. The serum he just took grants him 100 compatibility with the nanomachines. It's a beautiful golden statue of a woman, basically demanding the boy prove himself. Once the integration is fully complete, Jean gains the insane ability to generate physical objects. Her eyes light up and a wave of power pours out, and a bunch of tiny stars pop out of the flowers. Through Nanomachine's shape transformation, the best part, this upgrade is just the tip of the iceberg. Except they're not stars, they're a bunch of fairies laughing. They're C-rank monsters, so they're not that strong. His old friend reveals that he has hidden similar power UPS scattered all across the world. He purposely didn't store them all in one place. Problem is, the little fairies are unhinged and go crazy when they see humans. So Lee nails one of them dead on, just in case the corruptors manage to destroy a facility and wipe everything out at once. Plus, this scavenger hunt ensures Jean will have to travel across the globe, hoping his attacks hit the flower fairies. Suddenly Kim stops and puts his hands on the magic barrier and witness the magnificence of the new world. First-hand, Kagura admits he has no idea what kind of threat the corruptors will pose in this distant era, but he is absolutely certain that the future is far brighter than the bleak, apocalyptic reality they left behind eons ago. He knows he can't prove his specialness like that, so he activates the outsider perk, reciting the magic formula, but the statue keeps insisting he has to prove his worth. Kim decides his special thing is being able to interpret that formula. As the message progresses, the holographic projection shows just how much the poor scientist aged over time. He earns another achievement recognized by the Tower of Trials, 10,000 points, and the tower grants him a blessing. It's a bittersweet moment as Kagura expresses profound sadness, knowing he would never be able to see this beautiful, restored world for himself. A red dragon soul, a sacred herb seed, and 5 sacred herbs on top of that. After officially passing the torch and handing over the responsibilities of the future to Jean, the message finally concludes. His magic goes up 5 levels, his mana recovery speed increases by 20, and all magical power goes up by 10. Right on cue, Hakama and the rest of the gang arrive, actively searching for their so-called guardian god. The tower congratulates him for clearing the secret floor. Meanwhile, the festival is starting. She and the koala guy, Dampa, have come to drag him back to the village, because the entire settlement is eagerly waiting for him. But Lee notices something weird in the photo they took earlier. There's a creepy guy behind them who doesn't look human. The old man in the top hat is a mind staggering around. As they head back, Jin's sharp eyes catch a glimpse of a familiar research facility, access key dangling around Hakama's neck. The guy tries to pass as human, and Kim notices it's close to 9:30, so why isn't Lee there yet? Curious, he inquires about the pendant, wondering exactly how she got her hands on it. The creepy thing notices our hero. Looks like he's going to have to deal with it. Hakama explains that long ago, an incredible individual told her ancestors to pass it down through the generations as a protective charm. Legend had it that if imminent danger ever threatened the village, this very key would summon the guardian god to protect them, because it's part of the main story. If he rushes in and messes with how things are supposed to progress, something could go wrong. A civilian asks the mind if he's okay. The monster looks threatening with a red aura. Kim's going to have to do something. Unfortunately, a civilian gets hit in a fatal way. Hearing this, Jean is deeply moved. He's thrilled that his friend went to such incredible lengths to set everything up for him, leaving him feeling profoundly indebted to Kagura. Back in the center of the village, a full-blown party is already underway. Everyone starts yelling that it's a demon going berserk, and they need to call for help. While everyone is busy stuffing their faces and drinking, the kids finally parade their guardian back into the spotlight. However, the mood shifts slightly, as the adult villagers immediately start gossiping. Upon seeing an inferior species creature, to their narrow minds it simply doesn't make sense for a biologically ordinary being to hold the legendary title of guardian god. Lee and his friend show the photo to a special forces security guy, who confirms it's a demon. They say it was nearby, and the guy says, "That's a disaster because there are tons of people there." Just as they are loudly doubting our boy's potential, SARS suddenly stands up and completely goes off on the group, and monsters get stronger the more humans they consume. Suddenly a huge wave of mana appears. For daring to point fingers at their savior, he even goes so far as to dish out some well-deserved punches. After all, these hypocrites were the very same cowards who hightailed it out of there. The second danger reared its ugly head. When he gets there, Lee wonders who that person is, trying to face the beast and save the girl. The thing throws a massive attack, but the girl gets saved by a table. Watching this wild back and forth, Hakama and Dampa can practically smell the sheer hypocrisy radiating from SARS. The outsider realizes he got too close and needs to do something. The monster starts chasing the poor girl. Focus, the hero figures the demon must be B rank. After all, he was literally the first person to scoff at and vehemently doubt Jin's strength, and fighting it head-on is basically asking to get killed. So he gathers all his mana and he fires it at its weak spot. Just a few hours prior, the village grandmother steps forward to address Jin personally. The back of the neck, a medium-sized explosion goes off, and shards of glowing blue mana scatter. Feeling overwhelmingly indebted, she attempts to express her utmost gratitude, but the big bastard is still standing and ready to fight. Now half its face is messed up, and to make it worse, on behalf of the entire settlement, the reality is if it weren't for his timely intervention, none of them would be standing there right now. The village would have been reduced to ash, because he didn't completely destroy its brain. Now the demon is fully enraged. True to form, my guy nonchalantly brushes off the flattery, insisting it was just part of his job. Still, he knows these folks won't let him off the hook without giving him something in return. As a gesture of goodwill rather than asking for material wealth, he requests something far more valuable, which is information. Our hero was saving this for later, but he doesn't have a choice. The Heart of Nature effect activates. Mana recovery speed shoots up to 1000 per minute. Kim is surrounded by mana. Jin wants a detailed rundown on the current state of the world. Unfortunately, a bunch of isolated villagers aren't exactly equipped to answer such a daunting geopolitical question. To get the answers he seeks, they strongly advise him to visit the royal capital, where the king of Chromosia resides. Since people from all walks of life gather in the capital, it's a massive hub for global affairs and vital intel. Kim's attacks aren't over yet. He's still got a few seconds. The beast tries to block, but it's too many hits at once. They mention that merchants from their own Kodama village frequently travel there to sell specialty goods, and the kid even dares it to try. The guy with glasses is aiming right at the monster's head, crafted from with silkworm thread. While the road to the capital is notoriously long and treacherous, the grandma reckons Jin will be perfectly fine. Maybe if he can keep this up, it'll work, but unfortunately, since he's obviously not your average Joe, she even tasks Hakama with being his official guide, suggesting Jin take her along, since she was already planning to head to the royal capital anyway. Shaken up a bit but already regenerating, that's when the special forces guy arrives and slices the monster to pieces. Because Hakama is one of the rare few who can wield divine powers, she wants to enroll in the prestigious academy, dedicated to training magic users, and he says the situation was handled successfully. He introduces himself as Agent Jun Hyun-soo from the Special Forces, and says that thanks to the kid, Jin is genuinely surprised to learn that formal, educational institutions still exist in this era, and it was easy to take care of. Then he asks to see his mage license. Suddenly it becomes clear that our boy has earned himself a very loud, very loyal admirer. SARS enthusiastically volunteers to act as the guardian, God's personal bodyguard on the journey. The old woman quickly shoots him down, reminding SARS that he literally has zero reason to visit the capital, because he figured he was at least B rank. That's when Kim notices Lee and Shin watching from far away, and he gets annoyed they only showed up now. Meanwhile, the two of them are thinking they've seen this guy somewhere before. However, SARS loudly boasts that he absolutely does have a reason. He plans to join the esteemed Holy Knight Order. Grandma, however, knows this is purely wishful thinking. She ruthlessly points out that SARS couldn't even manage to get accepted into the basic academy, so joining the elite Knight Order is a massive long shot. This catches Jin off guard. Jong says maybe the guy just looks ordinary and tells them to leave. The agent thanks the outsider a ton, but Lee is not convinced at all. All cute about it, the mage says he only did what he was supposed to do, considering SARS as a divine power wielder. Jean assumed the guy would breeze through the admission process. Effortlessly, Hakama enlightens him about the catch. There's a mandatory written exam, designed specifically to filter out the idiots, and SARS was tragically a victim of his own sheer dumbness. Now Jong has to go. Reporters and other agents will handle the rest. Soon Kim bows to thank him for saving his life. Right after that, the system window says he took part in subjugating a B-rank villain named Jang Han, which might be messing with the original story. It says a minor change was detected, and the reward is 5,300 points. Banter aside, Jean finds himself growing increasingly curious about this elite class. Coincidence went up by 0.2. Kim realizes everything changed because he stepped in, known as the Holy Knights. Speaking of which, the scene transitions away from the village to a heavily armored knight. He is visibly stunned to learn that the giant invader, terrorizing the Kodama village region, has already been completely annihilated. The one delivering this massive bombshell is the exact same spy chick, who was watching the entire lake battle from the bushes. The knight demands she confirm the facts one more time, and the girl firmly corroborates her story, without a single moment of hesitation. The goal is to protect Lee Seo-jun and rack up coincidence. He needs to step in whenever he can, and Lee also got a reward of 15 million, one for killing the demon. Dragging that trident back to the dorm would be a pain. The Holy Knight is in absolute disbelief. Until today, he never could have imagined that anyone outside of their elite order possessed the raw capability to solo a monster of that caliber. So this works out perfectly. He's going to actually rest and enjoy his money at the exclusive Hansung Hotel, the major star place. They're basically a global corporation. Right in the middle of their debrief, a corruptor suddenly attempts to ambush the spy, leaping at her exposed back. An organization with strength, power and money, and they play a pretty big role in the story. When he walks into the huge hotel, the knight reacts with blinding speed, drawing his sword and slicing the monster cleanly in two. Instead of retreating to the safety of the kingdom, the knight makes a bold decision. He is officially too intrigued, eager to personally track down and meet the mysterious man who effortlessly slaughtered such an enormous beast. And Kim hears the vice chairman saying, it's been a long time since he's seen his sister Sion. Apparently the kid remembers a character named Han Sion. That trident is way too flashy. Better to sell it, but the enchanted scroll could come in handy later. And wakes up to a gorgeous morning enjoying the taste of air. Still, finding it hard to believe that he could enjoy a scenery like this. But unfortunately he'll have to wait until tomorrow. And in the morning a woman on TV says, part of him regrets that his dear friend Kagura can't see it. Alongside him one of the kids brings him his clothes, urging the guardian god to put them on. In the next scene we have our boy out on the village side. Hakama's grandma is telling her to fulfill her duty properly as a guide, while SARS is acting all fed up that he couldn't be the one to lead Jean. As a travel guide, Jean takes special interest in the guy and even praises SARS's movement, assuring him that he'll be waiting for his arrival. At the royal capital this remark turns SARS squealing into a fangirl. Kim says he got 21,000 points just from a newspaper article, but now his identity is out there, wishing the guardian god the best, and hoping that he takes care of Hakama. Hakama herself is told to be safe, and with that the journey of the two begins. With their departure the midget and the tall man walk together, crossing all kinds of gorgeous and scenic views. Akim shows him around until finally setting camp. Jean asks about how far the capital is. Apparently it's 4 more days of walking, so it's not as far as he expected, but she's really curious about his side, and why he's bent on exploring the world. Refusing to share, he tells her that it's a secret. Deep down Gojo over here knows that the corruptors are still alive, based on Kagura's loose description, and he even got to encounter a few. In this era their normal rate of reproduction only occurs in destroyed and polluted environments, the exact opposite of this place, which means something or someone is causing a change behind the scenes that needs to be investigated, and thinks it's a special medicinal ingredient. It massively boosts the effectiveness of other ingredients. Hakama is scared to see him make a face so serious, while lost in thought, so he apologizes to her for contemplating. But on its own it does nothing. Right now nobody knows how to handle this herb. Jean understands one thing. This era isn't totally dominated by the corruptor creature. The solution is a genius pharmacist who's right there. But she's not totally convinced. Signs of survival are clear and around. His first main goal is to investigate the people of this era, then deal with the corruptors, and asks if Kim has any specific conditions. Our crafty guy wants 500 million. Researching the monsters isn't so hard, as he can personally do it at his leisure. Apart from that, bro wants an immediate change, and requests Hakama to stop calling him a guardian god. She gives him too much respect even then, and he has to urge her to just call him Jean. It sounds like the kid has no idea how huge their group really is. And then Kim says actions matter more than money. Once the sacred herb gets commercialized, it'll take over the pharma market. The sound of a horse galloping catches the attention of both. A holy knight has arrived alongside his team, urging to have a moment with our duo. This guy looks like your average Prince Charming. Except Jean doesn't care and asks about his identity anyway. Hailing from the Holy Knight Order, the captain of the 7th Division announces himself as Argus Alton. The concept of a Holy Knight is still new to our boy, who wonders. Our boy knows she wants to take over the Hansung group, and she wants it so badly. If these are the interesting beings that the villagers mentioned, among Argus's team one bratty knight gets a temper tantrum, and roars at the commoner, for showing complete ignorance to her leader, because they could have gone in before. He got furious, by refusing to stand up. She even tells her captain that these two must be the culprits, only for Argus to tell her to tone down. Then the other demon tells Beck Gang to calm down. It's an order helping a buddy. Karina is fussing in the background, while the Holy Knight addresses Jean with more respect, who went berserk in the middle of a huge crowd of humans, would only put them in danger. This time our boy is simply curious about Karina's words earlier, but the Holy Knight brushes it off, acting like she was just being rude, saying he can't stand living in the shadows like this anymore, and he promises he'll take out that idiot. Argus then changes topics and asks about the identity of the man, where he came from or where he's headed next. Kim Jin-woo then the other demon asks if he's sure, because the guy's close to their client. Hakama shares that they belong to Kodama village, with a route set to the royal capital. Karina uses this as confirmation. There are monsters out there who cut down their own family, with a smile on their face, again acting on her high horse, as she accuses the two of being the inferior species. In fact, she goes on this whole pretentious exposé acting like she's 3000 IQ. Soon after Sejuan asks if the company's doing well, but his sister says work is tough, for revealing inferior beings from Kadama village. Jean is actually fascinated by the advancements of this world, when he hears that there are birth records, but Argus butts in again, and stops Karina for making reckless assumptions, giving him the company when he's so young, and Saiyan thinks that if it's too much for him. In fact, he can tell that the little girl, Hakama, is actually wearing special Kodama clothes, ones that are revered with high quality even at the capital, but he can just hand the rights over to her anytime. Meanwhile, Kim saved her contact, figuring using 2 accounts should be safe. The children of the village don't wear such royal clothes, therefore confirming that they are indeed from the village, proving Karina's dumbass wrong again. Though he's certain of the girl, Argus unsheathes his blade, and besides, everything worked out thanks to her. The kid feels way more at ease. She must be really smart. She's probably checking whether the weakness he mentioned is actually useful info. Then Kim gets a message from Saiyan, and points it at the man standing before him, declaring him different from the rest. First, he's never even seen this guy's clothes, posing the question where he belongs to, and asks if he needs anything else. Han Saiyan trusts him. The Holy Knight shares that many bandits have been plaguing the road between Kodama village and the capital. It's possible that this guy is one of those bandits, trying to traffic children. That's another 1,000 points faster than he expected. He asked for a potion and an entry ticket to the underground arena. She says she'll let him know when it's ready, but he's worried about the demons, and Hakama is also in on the act. While acting harmless, the little girl tries to pitch in with a denial, but they don't believe a single word. Without thinking things through, Hakama charges up an attack, only to get cornered, with several magical swords pinning her from every direction. If he thinks of it as the price of his life, it's easier to swallow a few days later. She earns the praise of the Holy Knight for having divine power. While our boy is pretty impressed by the power of a Holy Knight, Argus's capabilities are strong. Jean can see that right away, and now that he's in a position of true authority, the Holy Knight demands an explanation on where the man came from. That information will be the deciding factor between letting our boy live or not. but just hearing that Jean glares at him with the look of murder. The tension is strong, but eventually, Bro decides not to pursue his feelings, and simply gasps that he came from Kodama village, and it was shocking. He always had a dark side, but she never imagined he'd actually killed someone. Karina jumps up to call him a liar to his face, but Argus genuinely accepts this explanation and puts down his weapon. This is a shocking turnaround, especially when the dude was moments away from making death threats. She wants to know how the kid knew all this, but we know it's because he knows the original story. Han Sejin is greedy and teams up with the demon. The Holy Knight consents that he's not telling a lie, while Hakama officially declares Jean as the guardian god of the village. Kim says he'll tell her if she gives him 5 of Hansung's pharma profits. The concept of a guardian god fascinates the Holy Knight, but he doesn't take it seriously and turns around to leave. He goes back up on his horse, apologizing for his rudeness. Argus was actually doing all of that as part of his job. It looks like it can't be transferred. The two of them will have to go in together. Paying attention, the captain understands that they'll meet each other at the royal capital in the future. The outsider comments that that's why she's dressed like that. She asks what his plan is in there. In fact, he even offers them a chance to come find him if they run up in some trouble. Saying so, he hastens to take his leave, embarrassing Karina, who wanted some serious shit to go down. For some reason, even then, Saiyan snaps that he's going to use the money he earned to gamble. Kim just agrees and she thinks he's insane, which makes her disappointed in him. Jean is looking confused with this bitch's psychotic need for drama. In the next scene, we see the team en route to their next destination. Karina is forcing herself for no reason, highlighting that Jean is suspicious, and that they shouldn't have let that inferior species get away. By the time he leaves the arena, he'll have even more confidence. They talk to a mysterious masked man who gives them a VIP. The words inferior species hang in his throat. Argus taunts the girl for not knowing which one of them is truly the inferior species. Then Kim realizes that Guy is the big bad and S-class demon Harion. Of course he's here. Confirming his thoughts, Rhea agrees, too much to Karina's shock. He's the one running this arena. Our hero needs to be careful not to get dragged into it. In fact, she emphasizes just how much of a godlike gap between them and the man they were facing was. At the time, Argus actually attempted to make a move 3 times in one instance, but his resolve couldn't even allow him that. He could sense that Jean, who had his hand in his pocket, was going to act immediately, and countered him before the move was even made. Now I don't even know what the hell that means, but damn good job. Our protagonist, by the way, because everyone's gonna bet on him. But of course our boy has a plan and asks to place a bet. So he bets 530 million on Yang Hongju's opponent. Saiyan is totally confused and speechless. Argus even tried to use divine power, and in the face of Jean, the damn power didn't even activate, because she doesn't even know who the opponent is. Ryan gets told that some newbie, frightening Karina, the same move that he pulled against Hakama and easily cornered her, couldn't even work on him. I tried to do the same only to fall short too, implying that there's a different league of, a difference between their strength and a monster like Jean. Feat like that, even in Argus's view, can only be done by the supreme commander among the Knight Order. At best, Ria and Karina scoff. He had no info on the guy. He calls for a car and says that tonight they'll avenge Zhang Han. In the arena, things are intense. The imbecile girl had no idea just how outclassed they were at the time. Prince Charming emphasizes that they just met a monster, an anomaly different from the rest, and it's fine if Karina made a mistake because she's new to their unit. The one who's losing asks to surrender, and that's the winner of the first round. Everyone's pissed. As for the one who killed the invader of the Kodama village, Argus suspects that it's the same guy. Karina thinks that the situation is dangerous, but her captain is wise and believes it's dangerous to attack someone with zero information on the person. The atmosphere is way more brutal. Even so, the organizers don't let it go further than a knockout. And now it's Ryan. He also believes Jean is pretty chill for being passive, and right now their goal is to return to the royal capital, as their involvement is no longer necessary. The final thing they talk about is to inform the guild regarding the situation of the bandits. Ryan with 530 million bet on him versus Yang Hongju with 2.8 billion. Excited, Kim notices everyone played it safe and bet on the usual winner. People are saying some lunatic bet that much on Riang, and if he loses, the guy's getting nothing back. And in Argus's thoughts, he is left estranged with this guardian god character of Kadama village. If only that man could become their ally. The hero doesn't care because if everything goes to plan, he'll win 6 times more. And when the fighters come out, Sion says the weight difference makes no sense. It could solve a whole number of issues their country suffers from. In the next scene, our boy is on the road again with Hakama, mentioning how they encountered someone interesting the other day. But money isn't the only reason the kid came. It's because of the John group. He wonders if all of the Holy Knights are just as strong as the one they met. Major villains in the main story, because Ryan ends up joining their crew. Hakama clarifies that Argus was exceptional, even among the Knight Order. Only the best of the best are hailed as the Holy Knights. To become their leaders, Argus is at the top of their league. So Kim wanted to see him fight at least once. Nervous, the young guy keeps telling himself, it was written in the original story, so it'll be fine. He even gestures how fast his spirit art activation was the other day, a term that our boy is unfamiliar with. Apparently in the current era, borrowing the powers of the spirits is called divine power. He has to fight someone like this and he's gonna end it fast. He immediately charges the pale guy like a maniac. And techniques used to cultivate such power is basically the spirit method or spirit arts. In other words, Kagura and Jin's nanomachines are basically being treated like spirits. He takes a heavy hit, it slams him into the arena wall hard. And Kim isn't so sure anymore that he can win. Beyond their comprehension, he knows that they must look like some really messed up fantasy for the current age, but he can't help and remember Karina's furious feelings regarding lesser beings. Jin sparks his interest in the term and learns that the current era holds several different races of people. There are those resembling insects and fish too, and based on her grandmother's words, then follows up with a brutal kick. Looks like the long-haired guy got wrecked. A certain race could even live in water or specific regions alone. That changed with the passage of time, because the creatures evolved to adapt to the environment. The outsider is completely speechless, but when everything seems over, this line is fascinating to Jean, who immediately reflects that it means some survivors of humanity must have been the cause to kickstart an evolution cycle. Ryan looks like some kind of undead, but he can still fight a little, which just makes the big guy even more pissed. 100 million years later, he doesn't want to overthink this grand assumption. Instead, Jean figures that the people who didn't change and adapt to the environment basically became a livestock they called the inferior species. Since they can't adapt, they're seen as bottom feeders and weak, and fires them all at Yang, who takes them straight in the torso. Looks like he's not surviving that. The guy collapses in the middle of the arena, destroyed. Meanwhile, the crowd doesn't even know how to react, even though their society treats them like a bunch of nobodies, selling them as slaves. The concept of slavery existing in this era bothers our boy, and Kian is totally shocked. Kim says his job here is done. Time to go, but the demon boss thinks that's way too convenient. But Hakama stands resolute in her own opinion. She brightly asserts that there's hardly any differences between them and the inferior beings. He doesn't understand why people treat others with disregard, just because someone is different from them. Every person is weird in their own way, but he senses there was something behind that bet. He orders his underling to find the man who won today's bet. Outside, Cian asks how the young guy knew the skinny one would win. Kim says it was just a guess, and she complains he never tells her anything. And hearing her talk like that, Jean is impressed with the little girl's character. Thanks to the bet, the kid now has over 3 billion in his account, and he also got the achievement Incomparable Gambler. While they're talking, someone pops up in front of them, looking rugged and beaten down. This kid collapses on the road, begging for their help as Hakama rushes to his side. But then all of a sudden, killing intent activates. He knows that in the original story, Jean observes the kid closely, realizing that this one doesn't possess any animalistic features. Based off of ears, which means it's some kind of human, the kid is covered from neck to toe with bruises. These injuries aren't normal for a casual incident. Hakama tries her best to lift the girl up, while Jean activates his powers to help heal the person. Instead of being grateful, the kid immediately drops the act and pulls out a blade, aimed against Hakama's neck, threatening to kill her if he moves an inch from where he stands. This situation turned out far different from what our boy imagined. Now he knows for certain that he's been set up from the start. He also scans his environment to check for the ones who are nearby. A man materializes into reality out of thin air, praising Poir for the work by following his instructions. This ability is called stealth camouflage. It functions thanks to the nanomachines, absorbing the visuals of the surrounding, and using that to create a cloak of invisibility. The two powers collide in a wave of bright explosions. But Beck still has two attacks headed straight for the kid, and they're coming in fast. The only weakness is that the invisibility ceases to function upon movement, but these guys used it pretty well. The captain bullies Jean, calling him an inferior species and for possessing some neat clothes. The outsider's gonna have to move slick. A massive explosion goes off in the park, and Sean is worried inside the car. Earlier Kim said he thinks someone's been following him. She asks if it's a rival company of Hansung. He also asks the same question of where Jean came from, but our boy is stone cold and on his mewing streak, so he doesn't respond. Hakama worriedly shouts for him. He says it's something like that. Then he asked her to go somewhere with no people around, but she asks if the kid can handle the guy, while the captain threatens to kill the girl if he dares to move even a bit. He says it won't be easy, his mana is way higher than AB rank, so Kim needs Sion's help in the fight. Hakama acts on her own again by activating her ability, but our boy roars at her to stop at once. He doesn't want her to use such power against people, implying that it's dangerous. The little girl doesn't know what to do, while Captain Bandit over here is having the time of his life, realizing that the girl has divine power too. Shocked Kim realizes that this time they're faster. He's forced to throw himself to the side with everything he's got. They ask Jean if he can also wield such strength, but bro is in the mood to fuck around, so he acts like a mystery to be found out. The demon gets frustrated, and now our hero only has a few minutes of potion left. Time to end this once and for all. Pissed off, the meathead kicks him down, reminding the inferior species to stay in his lane. The captain takes issue with his subordinate, trying to damage their goods. Then again, they don't have high hopes of them selling at a good price. The red-haired guy makes more spears. Still, he knows it's gotten dangerous. They don't even entertain the idea of Jean possessing divine power, since he looks like an inferior being at best. While at the same time, Hakama is starting to realize that these are the bandits. But Kim's blue power orb is already ready, and he fires it full force into Beck's chest. And slave traders that Argus warned them about. The bandit leader activates a spell of his own to take care of the girl first, while Hakama is fearing for her life, that they'll be taken and sold as slaves at this rate. Kim can't afford to leave an opening, and he launches another heavy attack at the demon. The villain tries to block with his hands. In the next scene, hilariously, Jean wakes her up from her beauty sleep. Brother's got no shirt on because these fools literally stole all his drip, only sparing his undies. Hakama seems to be alright, but she's genuinely curious where they're even at. It looks like some kind of containment facility, where the other slaves are kept, squeezing hard trying to finish it quickly. Unfortunately, the 30-minute exhaustion hits. Jean explains that it's the hideout of the bandits, even pointing to the ones that were captured before them. All of these guys look like they're in rough shape. Most are inferior species. It's a grim scene, but hilariously, this time he's sure he's going to end our kid's life. Suddenly an attack from behind slams into the damn demon. Hakama is more curious. Why this dude's got his tits out in the open like that? The one who did it was the great Jiang Suji. Kim mentally thanks him for finally getting help. Jean explains they took everything away from him for looking strange, but she's just amazed how confident this man is without his clothes. Apparently this look is what suits Jean most in comfort, but aside from that, she's the most curious why he didn't fight back then and there. Demon is one of the strongest characters in the original story. Jiang is disgusted. With his godlike power he could have wiped them in a single go. Before he could answer, Por is sent inside the room for some breakfast of the Hansung family. And speaking of her, there's Sion. After finding them awake, she offers them a meal. Hakama is pissed off, but Por doesn't really care whether they hate her or not, and he says he didn't get hurt too bad. Dragging things out until she called for help worked, as she never had any expectations of being forgiven. The pure girl is annoyed, but Jean stuns blue hair by actually calling her kind. It comes as a shock to the pretend victim, but in reality Jean shares that bad people don't even care about the concept of whether someone hates them in the first place, or if they deserve forgiveness. The fact that Por thinks of these things is enough to conclude she's kind regardless, and the coincidence went up by 0.6, so Young trust him again. That's another 1,000 points. Obviously the kid is super happy about that. Zhang asked the girl if he should tell the chairman, because a demon attack isn't a small thing. The underwear man over here is done playing yoga, and gets to the real business. But Kim asks him not to. If people find out someone from Hansung got attacked by one of them, he grabs hold of the bars and in Uncle Iroh fashion, literally freaking bends them apart to carve him a way out. Poir is left flabbergasted by what she just saw. In reality, Jean has actually been waiting for her all this time for a private conversation. The blue hair is confused as to why, but Jean can already sense that she's blackmailed into working, because someone she cares about is imprisoned here somewhere. Our kid is lying down on his phone thinking about something. As thanks for saving her from Beck, the girl said she'd give him the info he asked for. Poor is terrified that how this guy's guess is so damn accurate. He even goes on to heal her wounds, emphasizing that the only reason he was fooled is because he knew the girl's wounds were actually real. Kim decides he's going to put all his money into the company's stock. There's only 1 minute left and the market finally opens. Before going back in time, criminals don't really go around roughing up their own allies. To near-death condition, that's how he knew immediately. He'd spent his whole life clearing dungeons, and still couldn't afford a house. That Poir was being blackmailed and forced into work. Jin's words caused her to experience massive guilt, ultimately allowing her a chance to share that her little brother has been captured by these 6 scumbags. It's kind of weird. Then he gets a message from Cian, asking him to grab a snack with her because she has a special gift. He heads to the cafe right away and notices she's already there. They constantly threaten that they'll sell the boy outside the country if she resists, that they'll never let her see him again. Kim says the pharma company's stock went totally crazy today. He made a ton of money thanks to her. Cian asks if he managed to make 5 billion. Poir breaks down into tears, collapsing that even her parents were slaughtered by these bastards. So her brother's all that's left. Just hearing her side of the story gets this man going. Unlike anything else, Jean is in a literal fit of rage, and Hakama finally understands why he let himself be captured like that. His goal has always been to save these people, but he also knows that villains are stubborn and annoying. Even letting a single one escape leads to disaster later. Hansei Jean Kim knew the guy dealt with demons, but not that specific one, because they can rebuild their power and create trouble again. Long story short, bro wants to squash these cockroaches together, and he starts off by kicking the crap out of this furry. With a back shot with the path now open, Gojo Satoru intends to rip these lowlives to pieces. Jean knows the psyche of villains more than anyone, and we get an understanding of this when we circle back to 100 million years into the past, when human civilization had reached its technological prime. It's obvious who ordered that attack, and she hates owing people. The kid at the time was beaten down and had nothing. His first thoughts were to admire justice in the world, but that admiration came with a second, more haunting realization. Any world that needed justice was also filled with an overwhelming amount of bad people, people who wanted to hunt him down. For example, living an ordinary life is something to be praised, but the kind of environment he grew up in. And suddenly she calls to him and says she hopes he likes the gift. She picked it out herself. He thanks her and smiles happy. The boy never experienced the peace he ever wanted, so when it came to the people who tried to mess with him, it's a mana bracelet, super tough and durable. A connection is successfully formed. Jean literally crushed them under the weight of his powers, breaking their bones and destroying them. Over the years he took down bat people everywhere he went. But something weird happens right after Ryan gets curious about Kim. Another 1,500 points. A man named Cheon he bows to the demon, continuously crushing the ones that disrupted the peace of the world, until one day a man came to him suggesting a different opinion. He thought that Jean had been born into the wrong world, and that leads us back to the present. Our boy is walking like a chat to confront the losers in front of him, having already laid waste to piles of bodies. Bro just wants to increase his kill count, and refusing to answer any questions, he throws one of their own at the henchman in front. Moment one of them catches the guy. Our boy swoops in with a lightning-fast kick and slaughters the other. His friend is left horrified, because Jean just sends this dude with a crater in the wall, appearing no different than a goddamn monster, who doesn't know how to stop. Terrified, the guy tries to run away. If he's thinking about laying a hand on his client, he'd better be ready for the consequences. The man bows and apologizes over and over, but it's pointless. Only his agonizing screams reach the lower-level captives. Poor consents that this scream is coming from the others. She's genuinely starting to wonder who the hell Jean is. Hakama casually reveals that this dude is a walking god, and that they have nothing to worry about, as he'll take care of everything by himself. Right now they need to follow his instructions to head outside, and the Demon King will soon die. Ryan thinks the king is about to put on another show, but it's terrifying to Poor that they're about to be saved. The leader of the bandits isn't exactly easy to beat, even though he possesses a talent for powerful divine magic. In a battle of brute strength, it's hard to imagine anyone taking that guy down. Cheon explains that according to the prophet's altar, the child turning 18 this year is at the Magic Academy, so our hero decides to ease up a bit on the Kim Jin-woo stuff. This isn't the time to get involved with Ryan, but while Poir is thinking such useless thoughts, our boy already has the dude quivering on his knees. There are more important things to focus on right now. He looks at the scroll. The boss begs Jean to stop offering him lumps of money, even adding slaves into the picture. By the way, Poir's brother is kept in this room. Jean is disgusted by the mere suggestion of being offered slaves. He kills another guy in front of the boss, while the bandit leader questions what the hell is going on. Not even his spirit arts can seem to activate. In the face of this man's divine powers, trying to kill them before they fully develop, demons invade the school at 4 in the afternoon. But even more than that, is the mystery of why Jean gained all this power. But they get completely wiped out by Lee Seo-jun. At least that's how it goes in the original story. Hilariously, our boy calls this clown a half-baked villain, because the real ones at least have the spirit to run away when they know they're outclassed. But the bandit leader alongside his henchmen are all condescending assholes who look down on others, deluding themselves that maybe they could win, but the moment they fear a loss is in sight. Not just Lee, someone on stage says that besides next week's schedule, there's one more announcement. The students are exhausted and complain a lot. Then the man says fighting is training. They begin to plead honestly. This verbal beatdown is satisfying, and following our boy's advice. And training is fighting, and to get ready, all second years will take part in sparring sessions. Over the next few days, if they can't find a partner today, the bandit leader moves his feet to start running. He goes straight to the elevator to pull the lever, unleashing a secret weapon they've encaged as a monster. Jean is shocked to find a corrupted under their control. It's a powerful beast acquired for a certain noble. What bothers me is how the hell purple Arnold Schwarzenegger over here. But he didn't expect that. Nobody would want to team up with the poor guy. Couldn't break out of his cage sooner. The bandit leader is more than happy to give Jean a challenge, even though he'd shown talent in theory, and in breaking through the barrier, vowing to reduce everything to chaos. As the creature roars its battle cry, the first attack is made by the corrupted monster, who swings to pummel down Jean on his feet. The attack is blocked, giving us a view of that massive Gaiet. And Lee is going all out in training. Then he barely dodges an attack. In the process, the bandit leader is left speechless by the power of Jin's the power of his muscles. Meanwhile, Jean shares that he was literally born with a superhuman body. If it is first place is hers. So Lee tells the girl not to get ahead of herself, possessing muscle fibers, several orders of magnitude higher than the average person. Now that it's his turn to strike, this man kicks the creature back. Before vowing to unleash more of his strength, Bro shoots a Kamehameha wave like he's Goku or something, wiping out the monster to pieces in a single blast. All that yapping and the bandit leader is back to where he started. On his knees again, Jean stares him down. Since she's class 82, the poor girl hears them saying she's good at theory, but terrible in practice. They say they feel bad, wondering what this pathetic scumbag will do next. Now that he's run out of options, Bro tries to weasel his way out, begging to be spared, but my glorious white-haired king responds with a hook to his face. Yoon gets nervous and fires a strong wave of ice mana, straight at a training dummy, but unfortunately it doesn't even move, refusing any chance of mercy. With the matter settled, he takes back his aura farming drip, and apologizes to the kids in advance for waiting. First, Bro wants to check the documents, to gather direct evidence of their crimes. He opens a drawer and finds an interesting set of notes. Just one glance at them probably makes you think that this dude has hit the jackpot. Yoon should have made it to class 6 by now, but because he interfered. But no, our boy has absolutely no idea what the hell he's reading right now. She lost her chance and her growth stalled. Then Kim says she might be confused right now. The language is unfamiliar to him. so he is too intense to use Hakama for help. Even then Jean just can't place a finger on why these bandits were using the corrupted, but she just points at him and says he's one of those, the type who just wants to crush her confidence so she'll listen. To confirm his suspicions, he inspects the torn remains of the monster he defeated. This way he can access the cameras of the surrounding nanomachines floating in the room. Jean wants to check the records of last week at the least, and stumbles across a footage of his liking. Apparently this one noble came to them with the monster, and refused to elaborate his intentions with the creature. Instead he left them a little nugget. This conniving villain hinted at the demise of the country. Soon Jean takes note of this detail for later. While the scene cuts to the children that escaped the containment war, ends up reuniting with her little brother. The two embrace each other in a long hug, feeling safe that neither of them got hurt badly. She turns and addresses Jean as a god, but her attack pattern is simple. She's basically just forcing ice power into existence, thanking him for all his efforts, while Bro refuses to accept the name, and it makes her tense up. He says he'll show her a different approach. Aside from that, he's curious about the people in red uniforms, currently seizing the bandits. Apparently they're supposed to be guild staff members. In fact, Stronger blasts right at him. A freezing explosion forms. Luckily Kim manages to dodge. The person with the majestic hair and beard standing close to them is the guild master of their city. The same man is drawn to Jean, something she couldn't do even after training like crazy. A huge wall of solid ice forms, and comes up to ask if he's connected to the incident. Our boy confirms his contribution, imploring Padrak to introduce himself formally as the guild master, and thank him for his efforts. He takes one look at the guy. As expected, provoking her was the answer. Then Yoon asks how he plans to win, stunned as to how someone could defeat such a large number of people without even taking a single hit. Despite wielding the appearance of an inferior species, Podrick can tell this guy is no laughing matter. The guildmaster shares that the incident resulted in heaps of damage. Maybe he doesn't even want to form a team. Kim explains that inexperienced manifestation mages all have one thing in common. Then he rushes at her at a terrifying speed. Bandit extermination requests are at an all-time high. This makes Jean curious because he thinks, saying that once you can get close, shutting them down is easy. Any lord would do his best to prioritize the capture of the bandits. The guildmaster laughs, arguing that not even the lord has that level of authority. Trying to block all that power is obvious to her, but the outsider snuffs it out in an instant. Then dealing with the crimes is considered the duty of the guild members, the ones who swear their loyalty to the king, even if Lord Chapayon, the ruler of the land. Yoon sits on the ground upset that she lost, and says maybe she really does need to learn magic from him. Were to commit crimes, they would have to report the situation to the king. Even if something like that seems unlikely, Padrak is confident in his assumption, while Jean is comparing the situation from 100 million years back. Kim offers her his hand, explaining she just didn't know how to bring out her talent. Smiling, he says he'll help her and they can do it together. Thinking she'll help him improve too, they shake hands and the deal is done. Realizing that a lord represents a mayor, and the guild is acting like the police. Even then, Lord Shapian is not someone who can be trusted easily. Yoon says she'll trust him just this once, and that her teacher better teach her properly. Now she trusts him and she's on his side. Jean decides to surrender all the documents that he recovered from the bandits, questioning if they can be of any use to the guild. She'll have to do a tribute adaptation training. As he hands her an ice cube, the guild master reads one of them, only to realize that it's a proper list of the ones who traded with the bandits. Thanks to this list, they can easily arrest the whole group. Curious, he says all magic starts with adaptation, which basically means understanding your attributes, and that's what determines how good you are at manifesting. In other words, she won't improve no matter how much she practices. Jean asks if the city lord's name is also on the list, but impressively enough, Lord Shapian's name is nowhere to be found. Yoon says that a tribute adaptation training counts as training too, but he's never heard of a method like that, making him a clever villain who hides his tracks. For now, Jean can't do much about the situation. He's helped free the slaves, so he wants to know what will become of them now. The guild master assures them that the guild will take responsibility for returning them home safely if a missing report has been filed, but for the ones who don't have such a thing. That night, surrounded by corpses, Cheon asks if everyone is there and has requested All the active demons are gathered around the Magic Academy. It's time to find the child of the prophecy, and they'll infiltrate the school next week. Unfortunately, they don't have anywhere to go. The system is shitty. According to their undercover collaborator, security is lighter during exams, because it refuses to account for cases like Poir and Nino, who lost their parents, so Jean asks for a shelter to keep them in. Shockingly, this era doesn't even have a shelter in town. Podrick can only find work for these kids, but because they're both classified inferior, doing that will be difficult too. The woman says, it's impossible to take down the child with only 4 B-class demons. The kids are sulking, while Jean is disappointed that it's all the same in this world. He doesn't want to leave these kids alone, even if there's nowhere to work. Suddenly an idea pops up in his head, so he asks them if these two would be willing to work somewhere. If they had the chance, Poir agrees and wants to give it a shot, which reminds Jean of the Golden Knight Argus, who once offered to help them if needed. In the next scene, we're at the royal capital, Chromosia, to visit Argus. Holy Knight is on his way back, when suddenly he experiences a sudden chill out of nowhere. The girl manages to make a perfect snowflake, then she turns it into a powerful ice spear. Arriving at his residence, he tells the team to rest up for the day. Argus returns to his quarters. He's welcomed by an entourage of maids and butlers, welcoming him with pride and glory. The first thing he does is ask for an update, and from the reactions of his servants, the Holy Knight can gather that something must have happened. The butler apologizes for troubling his master, only when he's just returned. While this is going on, his sister watches the scene from above with a glaring look. Argus receives the report and gets an immediate headache. The situation is way worse than he thought it would be, as an invader seemed to pop inside the capital and wreak havoc. The question of how it got in is less important to him, but rather who helped navigate the beast inside is the real problem. His best guess is that it's someone from Harness Academy, a place teeming with suspicious people plotting their demise. Regardless, he's in dire need of comrades to control the situation of the capital, and at this time, but she explains it's just a tribute adaptation training, and that she's been watching since day one. Hei Young improved her mana control a ton in no time. It's impressive, but even more surprising. Jean and his group resumed their journey for the capital. 3 days flew by into the extermination mission. Poir began to wonder if there's truly a job for inferior beings like them to take up in the capital. The girl asks if it was Kim, and the teacher agrees. Being the kind man he is, Jean assures them that their ability to read and write is already a huge edge. Thinking the girl only knew the names of the top students, and Mrs. Lee says Sunwoo has a lot of potential, so he urges the kid to have more confidence. Hakama, on the other hand, points in the distance, sharing that the capital is near. Our boy is absolutely gobsmacked when he stares at the grand beauty of the royal capital. How is he supposed to improve himself? The teacher says. By the evening they arrive inside the capital. The place is hustling with people all around. Akama reveals that the capital relies on imports, which means every kind of good is available here, even the Kodama clothing that they once mentioned about. Jean finds it interesting and all, and takes notice of a bunch of insect mutants too, because it lets you summon items from anywhere. Great for combat and everyday life. There's an abundance of races around here, showcasing how they all develop differently. The streets are tidy, safety is top-notch in the capital too. These discounts only show up when you're broke. Our favorite mage needs a way to get 11,500 points in 5 days, but even with all those benefits, there are some disgusting parts. Jean reflects that each era shares its own bundle of problems. Calling him to the principal's office before class. You are Raw Park in 1. He asks Hakama about the entrance exam of the academy, and learns that it's going to be held next week. And Kim Sun-woo were the 3 students selected for the second year. They're going to be waiting until the exam starts. But overhearing their conversation, a blonde girl wonders. It's an advanced class for students with huge potential, regardless of grades, and Kim realizes Lee was in that class. If this party is interested in entering Harness Academy, especially when they all look like inferior species, if he gets in he can interact with the guy more. Then Park ranked 5. We arrive at the hotel rooms, where Hakama and Nino pounce on top of the comfy beds. They can finally sleep at a proper place, with Jin's initial goal of reaching the capital being fulfilled. This makes him wonder what he should do next. He even asks you rank 2 to say something. She says she couldn't care less and tells him to worry about himself. as even though this is a new era, he still has to find a way to make money to survive. Annoyed, Park thinks that's why she has no friends. Then the teacher asks what Kim thinks about the complaint. By the way, Bro got a lump of money for the extermination of the bandits, but he knows it won't last him forever, especially not with the 4 of them. Then there's the added issue of finding these kids jobs to work at. So the woman says that before he can join the class, he'll have to prove himself in the exams, get to 80 or higher later, and an immediate solution to this would be a meeting with Argus. However, right now, they don't know anything about the guy's location, or what connections that could lead them to him. Jean speculates a bunch of options, saying that if everything goes according to plan, it'll work out. The second-year exam is a co-op thing. You team up with a partner and fight a monster, the Green Giant, if you can focus on the weak spots inside its body, prioritizing the investigation of corruptors first. He knows that there are people in this era trying to exploit such monsters for their own goals. Corruptors are by nature very dangerous beings, so they can't be left unattended. This time he refuses to let the living face total annihilation again. Everyone watching cheers, saying it's exactly what you'd expect from Lee Seo-jun. Anyway, he casually asks Hakama what the people of this country do when they have to research something, and that his partner's really good too. Now it's time for the lower rank kids to climb the ranks. The outsider tells Yoon to clear the way and takes off at full speed. Apparently, they read books on the subject or consult someone knowledgeable. The books themselves are pretty expensive. Even in the village, they had to read the books together just to afford them. The guy jumps over it and lands on the ice wearing special boots. People start talking about how he's the dude who embarrassed himself in the ranking test. At the same time, the royal capital boasts a spectacular library, allowing research to be much easier. Jean likes that idea, because now he can use that library to his advantage, and find clues about the laboratory that Kagura left behind. It's worth 1,000 points and everyone thinks it's gonna be awkward. Then the outsider perk activates, and this time our hero isn't gonna be a joke. In the next scene, brothers at the receptionist desk, but the girl openly rejects him from using the facility, since books are considered sacred national property. Strong mana attack at one of the giants, nailing it right in its weak spot. It gets completely destroyed. They don't allow just anyone free entry. Only the students of a recognized academy or nobles are allowed to use such a place, once more complicating the situation for our boy. The big green monster charges him at full force. All hyped up, the kid says it's gonna be easier than he thought, but then Cheon hays up in the stands. Hakama hilariously reminds Jean that Bro can't even read. In his current state, though he's trying his best to learn letters, it'll take him a while to get a full grasp of the language. Bro's scratching his head like he's got an exam to prepare for, while 2 dudes in a cloak are secretly spying on them. As part of their mission, they come up to confront Jean for a simple chat, but actually it's a conversation that starts with a violent punch. Our boy reflexively grabs his fist right away, before taunting the guy for having amazing manners in his introduction. So much for the city's safety when people are attacking like this. But the guy remains arrogant, and Jean wards off his fist up in the air, diverting a powerful magic blast. The fighter praises him for having sharp instincts, while Poor can't fathom how these guys are openly using divine power. Our guy just says move and blast the giant with a thunderous mana bolt. They're both exhausted, but then something happens. In the middle of a civilian zone, our boy wants to know what's the deal with these losers. Quickly realizes that someone put a hit on his head. That only works out in his favor though. Even though these bullies threaten Jin's group to get lost from the capital, unless they want to deal with danger, Jean doesn't really budge on his position, and the girl fighting with him has insanely good complementary skills. Yoon hugs Kim super happy, but our hero is still worried, inviting the guy to try and attack him again, only to get his fist caught and literally slammed into the hard ground. After delivering a reality check to one of them, he turns to the other who is firing a magic blast right at him. Jean refuses to dodge and blocks the fiery attack head-on. He starts gaining more and more points and achievements, but he doesn't even care, making this guy think he dealt some serious damage. But out of the smoke emerges a hand, as he quickly grabs the guy and lifts him up as if he weighs nothing. Adopting a serious tone, Jean mocks them for being pathetically weak while challenging him. That is, if they even have the will to try. Bro really is the Gojo Satoru of this story. Meanwhile, his victim is questioning how on earth a low-level species is capable of so much strength. Yoon thinks she messed something up during the exam, but he says it's not that. Suddenly a knight's order stops the fight. It's Karina, who is annoyed that she has to interrupt her day off for this trouble. They say goodbye and she tells him that if he's too tired, he can skip this training. The girl doesn't even care about the assailants who attacked Jean. She just wants to throw both Hakama and our boy in jail. Kim knows that if the timeline's messed up, he needs to check how many events are different from the original, for the last time, much to Jin's favor, causing a scene that attracted the attention of someone connected to Argus. Lee should be around there right now, and there he is in the middle of the crowd, even if she's currently screaming in his face. After busting a street fight, Karina spots Jean and immediately gets excited, as she believes she has finally caught the inferior species Jean, causing trouble in the city again. But Lee says he's only 18 and can't join a guild yet. Even so, they're basically shoving business cards in the poor guy's face. People even drop what they were doing just to watch his exam. She is just about to start lecturing him, but a demi-human spectator standing nearby approaches her and admits that she saw everything that happened. The spectator explains. Then someone pulls the student's attention away for a second. It's Kim calling out to him and saying, "Mr. Jang," and Chil wants to talk to him something about his grades. People comment that the worst kid in the school did well, that Jean was actually the one who got attacked first, and that he was only defending himself during the fight. Karina checks the faces of the attackers. She quickly realizes that they are her usual foolish troublemaker juniors from the Harness Academy. The guys are disappointed and say they almost had him. Then Agent Zhang says Lee's fight was really good. She quietly hopes that the Holy Captain's younger sister is not involved in this mess again. Jean asks Karina if she is currently on patrol, and questions her about it, pointing out that he thought that the guy with the scar says his skills are on the level of the strongest mage. Since he's President Kim Jin-chul's disciple, guild members usually handle duties like this. Around the city, Karina replies that she was simply taking care of her nightly responsibility of maintaining order while she was on her way to visit a cafe nearby. Biak asks why the kid bothers him so much. The other one says it's because he regrets, now that she has personally seen Jean defeat several strong students from the academy with ease. Karina begins to feel that her captain's earlier suspicions about this, not being able to talk during the fight with the demon at the Han River, and if Lee had been the one fighting there, he would have gotten real combat experience. Then he asks what the leader thought of Kim, so-called inferior human, might actually be correct. He says Kim's combat sense was insane. It's hard to believe the kid is supposed to be the worst. She then tries to excuse herself and asks Jean to avoid getting into trouble again. But Jean does not let her leave so easily, and instead uses the opportunity to ask her to escort him, so he can meet her Captain Argus. Zhang laughs and asks what world an 18-year-old kid would get that kind of experience in. Once the ancient human finally gets an audience with Captain Argus of the 7th Division, he goes straight to the point and asks the man to hire them, reminding Argus that he was the one who had previously offered his help, someone that young can use compressed materialization. The leader makes a mental note to remember his name. When Argus asks about the kids who came along with him, Jean explains that he ended up confronting the bandits Argus had been searching for, and managed to capture them before handing them over to the guild. Meanwhile, Lee, with his arm around our hero's shoulder, thanks him for getting him out of there, but he asks why he came to this crowded place. Argus becomes anxious, because he finds it hard to believe that someone who looks like an inferior species could accomplish all of that so quickly. And Kim says, it's good to check out the exam they'll be doing next year. Yellow Eyes admits he doesn't want to get surrounded by those annoying guys again. Jean then continues, explaining that he brought along Nino and his big sister Poire, because they had no one else to rely on, and people would treat them poorly, due to being considered inferior species. But the other one assures him they're in a different area. Then he asks why Lee doesn't want to stay ranked number 1 at school. Lee looks like he doesn't want to answer, so he just says they should watch quietly so they don't get caught. And Kim thinks about the demon attack. Because of that, Jean asked the captain if he could arrange some kind of work for them. That starts in the 3rd year's exam arena, where it's easier to make contact with the infiltrator. Captain Argus reminds the ancient human that he has no obligation toward them. He doesn't know exactly when it'll start, Still he needs to keep Lee there and find Cheon-hae on his own. But Jean argues that he is willing to take responsibility for the kids, since he is the one who saved them. Argus finds this reasoning interesting. While the children look at their savior with hopeful expressions, the captain then quickly forms an idea, and decides to use the kids as a bargaining piece. He calmly tells Jean that he will allow the kids to stay at his place, and work there only if Jean agrees to work as a teacher at the academy. Jean accepts the condition without giving it much thought, and soon the kids are changed into maid outfits, exactly like the infiltrator said. Cheon asks how the rest of the plan is going. Poor thanks the captain sincerely, while the captain instructs his other maid servants to properly educate them, and make sure that no discrimination happens. As Jean walks away with Argus, he asks the captain what kind of catch is involved in him working as an instructor, and she says it's thanks to his help. Now it's finally time to begin. Argus explains that, although he has no clear idea where Jean originally came from, the hunt for the child of prophecy starts. In the duel, a girl gives up and the winner is Kim Chong-hyun. His instincts tell him that Jean is a trustworthy person. The captain then moves directly to the real point, and tells Jean that he wants him to infiltrate the Harness Academy. Jean becomes serious and asks for a proper explanation. He copies Chang's manifestation magic, and Park Min-ye's moves were super disciplined. Meanwhile, our hero is focused on scanning the crowd, and Argus begins describing the current power struggle inside the capital. According to him, several factions are locked in a quiet, cold war over control of the throne, since the king is critically ill, and might kick the bucket at any second now. He's just checking if there's anyone around looking to hire him. Yellow Eye says our guy's grown a lot compared to last semester. Everyone who watched his first exam was shocked, and he asks what kind of training he's been doing. He further explains that aside from the usual succession conflict, there are also individuals who hold no legitimate right to the throne, but still want to seize power. But the outsider notices something terrifying. Everything turns purple. It's the demon barrier. Confused, he thinks this didn't happen in his past life. Apparently, these people are extremely dangerous and are even using the corruptors, which people in this era call invaders, as weapons to push their plans forward. Jean remembers Lord Shapian. Nobody understands what it is, and they think there's been an accident. A suitcase that was placed in a specific spot is full of magic stones. They all explode at once with massive force, and begins to realize that there might be even more troublesome figures than him. The captain says that he wants to expose these people. At the top of the dome, red demonic eyes watch everything. John orders them to attack, and nasty goblins jump out, going after anyone they see, and locate their hidden base. And the place he currently suspects the most is the Harness Academy. The loudspeakers announce that monsters have invaded the school, and everyone has to evacuate to this safe zone. Argus then knocks on the door and introduces Jean to his younger sister, Miria Olton. He explains that she attends the academy and will guide him there. Miria immediately shows her sharp tongue as she calls Jean a lowly, inferior species, just like Karina did earlier. The captain quickly tries to stop her, and reminds her that speaking like that is rude. However, she keeps insisting that she does not approve of giving such an. John didn't expect that they were only there to watch Lee's fight, and now they're wiping out the monster horde and saving people. Important task to someone she considers an inferior species. The yellow-eyed kid wonders if the special forces came to see him. Maybe it's Leader Diok's team. Jean points out her rude attitude, which makes the captain embarrassed, and he apologizes for her behavior. A teacher says they'll get out as soon as the barrier opens, so there's no need to be scared. And Kim knows that with those strong guys there. Karina steps closer to Jean, and quietly whispers that Miria is actually very capable, but she strongly dislikes inferior species. They can still manage to turn things around, but the problem is, how the hell do you raise this barrier? People start yelling for the mages to help. Arya keeps throwing insults at Jean, and claims that she does not see him as someone qualified to take the role of an instructor. Hakama then makes the situation worse by casually revealing that her guardian cannot even read, and they'll need one more rank support mage, but there's nobody like that there. However, Hakama quickly continues by praising how strong and capable Jean really is, and that kind of person is rare. Still, the instructor tells them to look harder. Her words suddenly make Karina realize that Miria was the one who earlier asked the academy students to attack Argus. The captain repeatedly apologizes again, and promises that he will properly discipline his sister. Minutes with only 2 special agents, and Kim knows that's impossible. Jean changes the subject, and asks Argus what exactly he is expected to teach at the academy. Argus replies that from his observations, Jean seems quite skilled with spirit arts. Cheon's barrier skills are the best in the world. Even in the original story, if it hadn't been a surprise attack, Lee wouldn't have beaten him, which is why he believes Jean would be the perfect person to teach the basic fundamentals. So Kim has no choice, he's going to have to step in. But then he then lists the 4 basic spirit arts as ignition, discharge, freezing and healing, and explains that being able to use even 2 of them should already be considered enough. Yang shows up first and says she's a rank support mage. She promises she'll take care of everything. The hero knows that saying the girl is a demon right now would just make everything look suspicious. Hearing that the basics here consist of only 4 spirit arts, Jean realizes that the bandit leader from earlier was actually quite skilled. The ability he used would already count as a special spirit art. People seem calmer now, but we know it's a problem. Lee feels relieved and says they'll be out of this soon. In this place, Jean quietly smiles, as he decides that he might change the way people in this era understand these special powers. The story then shifts to a week later, when it is finally time for Hakama to take her entrance exam. At the academy, Argus walks in together with Jean, since he wants him to take responsibility for the instructor duties. This year it appears that every year, 1 division from the Night Order must fill this position, and this time it is the turn of the 7th division. While Jean quietly walks behind them, the fat man named Rudman keeps staring at him the entire time. They eventually arrive at the headmaster's office, and Argus respectfully greets her. The headmaster smiles when she sees her former pupil doing so well in the Night Order. She survived, and the leader thinks the girl is helping. Without losing focus, she then brings up the ongoing faction struggles inside the country, and suddenly begins criticizing Jean, arguing to the captain that he should not treat the academy so lightly, that he would send an inferior. And the other guy answers that if that happens, he'll hand in his badge species to handle such an important role. The captain firmly insists that Jean is more capable than anyone else in his division. When the skinny rat Lord Gueta notices that the headmaster seems ready to accept Jean as their instructor, he quickly objects to the idea. The demon woman just thanks him, while continuing to get in everyone's way. Far from there, Lee asks why Kim brought him there. He now takes over the role of insulting the poor ancient human, and strongly argues that they cannot allow an inferior human to take such a position. The headmaster then turns toward Lord Rudman. The protagonist asks about the work being done up front, and the hero tells him the truth about the story, and asks for his opinion regarding this protest. The fat man casually agrees with the concern, but then presents a practical argument about the backlash they might face from both the students and the other instructors. But Kim explains he has no proof. Lee says the kid can prove it, and he even got a special offer. The headmaster then joins the protest as well, and admits that she shares the same concern, because he knows how to raise barriers. But the other guy says nobody will believe him. Jean realizes he is being spoken about without being included, so he steps forward and stands up for himself. Before respectfully greeting them, he calmly introduces himself with proper manners. Obviously everyone will believe it when a rank genius says it, not just some students still, showing that he can remain composed even while being openly mocked. He then asks the lords a direct question, wondering whether they are judging him, because he looks like an inferior species. Kim puts his hands on the circle and starts. Of course he activates his outsider perks first, or because they believe he lacks the power needed for the role. The principal smiles and replies that the only thing that concerns them is whether he truly has the required ability. Yang is shocked that the demon's big barrier is failing. The outsider wipes his hands and says it was no big deal, and he tells his friend to go deal with the situation already, and she asks him if he can prove it to them. When Argus suggests that the headmaster test it herself, she agrees, and a quick mock battle is arranged at the Harness Academy, Spirit Arts training ground. The sly skinny rat is the one who steps forward to face Jean, laughing, as he says that at least Jean will not embarrass himself too badly, since there are only a few students around today. The headmaster then explains the rules for not being able to maintain the barrier. and the demon woman wonders to herself who did it, because she was sealing it twice over, and makes it clear that they can only fight using spirit arts, because that is exactly what she expects their new tutor to teach. At the academy, some of the students gather to watch the match, including Miria, who stands among the spectators. She is excited, because this is the first time she will see the skinny rat personally engage in a battle. Jean already understands how this will end. The man claps and says it was amazing, and the woman says his attacks are still as strong as ever, yet he lets out a quiet sigh, and allows the institute to witness his power for themselves. Argus, however, begins to feel uncertain. This is the first time he will actually see the person he recommended fighting in front of others. But Diak knows whoever's behind this must be hiding somewhere, so they should look for them first. Determined Kim Yoon says she doesn't know who's behind it, but there is one really suspicious person, and he worries that Jean might end up embarrassing him in front of everyone. Lord Gueta, on the other hand, looks extremely excited and seems eager to end the match quickly. While putting Jean in his place, he quickly declares that he will take the opening move. People try to calm the instructor down, but the woman yells that the other one might be a demon. The infiltrator tries to play the victim, saying she's being treated like this, and immediately launches a huge fireball that he believes will be enough to defeat Jean in a single strike. Even though she only helped and everyone just gives her a dirty look, Zhang asks his boss if they should get involved. Jean calmly dodges the attack with ease, while the skinny rat still remains confident that he will win this contest. In the meantime, Yang explains, he took so long, and proved the captain wrong about his judgment. He then follows up with his ace attack, called lightning spears, while Jean continues dodging every strike, and slowly getting on his nerves, while the skinny rat believes that all Jean can do is keep running away. Jean himself quietly sighs, and thinks that this kind of power was never meant to be used against people. However, since there is no other choice left, Jean finally decides to demonstrate his ability, and intentionally reveals a unique spirit art. He uses a gravity manipulation attack, and forces the skinny rat, Lord Gita, down onto the ground, pinning him there and making it clear that he never stood a chance. Hey, what she should do. Furious, he tells her to do what she has to do, and that his arrogance meant nothing. In the end, the headmaster and Lord Rudman, the two undercover agents on alert, sense his aura and immediately move in. They land a perfect combo on the demon. The fat man are both left shocked by what they witness. Even Argus and his sister Miria stand there with their mouths open, after seeing such a clean display of power that they have never witnessed before. Yang already knows what to do if the mission fails. Everyone around him starts getting possessed, and turns into these jacked up monsters. When they ask what exactly just happened, Jean calmly explains that he simply manipulated the gravity surrounding Lord Gita. When he hears people saying that they have never seen anything like this before, as they can before she dies, then she tries to attack Lee, but he manages to hold her weapon back, ending her little headache for good. Jean smiles quietly, as he realizes just how much there is for the students. The mage says she came to the wrong place. The demons drop to the ground destroyed, as well as the instructors of the academy to learn. Lord Gita grinds his teeth in frustration, as he lies flat on the ground. Relieved, Lee thanks leader Kim Deok-hyen for the help, and Kim says it's been a year since they last saw each other. Looking absolutely miserable, out of sheer pity for the wrinkly old man, our hero finally releases the gravity pressure pinning him down, and he can collect his demon hunting reward later. Still, the kid wants the money to go to Kim. Rita has a meltdown, shouting that a spirit technique like that should not even exist. He insists the inferior must be using some kind of illegal trick. Our boy quietly stands there and takes the verbal abuse like a champ, while the geezer screeches in his face like a Karen. Watching the exchange, the headmaster calmly makes her decision. The surrounding students are impressed as well. Miria in particular cannot understand how he controls that much divine power. Or maybe she's not showing her real strength, because she's stuck carrying dead weight. Normally inferiors barely possess any at all. Her curiosity spikes, and she is determined to uncover who Jean really is. The scene shifts to the welcome ceremony 1 week later. There, the headmaster announces that Harness Academy was founded to train warriors, capable of eliminating invading threats. To him, she's not even the one he's looking for. With brute force, anyone too weak to keep up has no place within its walls. However, those who succeed are practically guaranteed a future filled with status and influence. observing from above a few demi-humans standing near Miria, are surprised by how many newcomers have gathered. Quite a few of them do not even come from noble families. Yoon yells at him to let her go. His opponent is her who collapses unconscious on the ground. A lion demi-human named Rias greets Miria casually. He mentions that it is unexpected to see her attending the welcome ceremony in person. While chatting, he suddenly notices an inferior sitting beside the faculty, and nearly chokes. He completely loses his composure when Miria reveals that the inferior is actually their new teacher. She asks Rias for his honest first impression, based purely on appearance, when he bluntly describes the guy as an average nobody. The child of prophecy, a mage born with the power to destroy demons, found her and now he's going to wipe her out with his own hands. With no wife and no life, she admits that was her initial judgment too. Feeling multiple stares drilling into him, Jean quickly realizes he cannot start investigating the academy too openly. From day one, before anything else, he needs to rebrand his image from a worthless inferior into something more neutral and unthreatening. Right now it feels like he has a giant target painted on his back. Dark purple power. Even so, the bracelet triggers a spell shield and protects him. The outsider doesn't waste a second. After the ceremony concludes, it is finally time for his first class, and unleashes a bunch of mana blasts, hitting the guy from every possible direction. Meanwhile, Lord Gita gathers the senior students and announces that regular classes are officially back in session. He drops to his knees, shocked at how much mana the kid has. Our hero says he's got more experience than he looks. He bluntly warns them not to fall behind the promising new talents who joined this year. That said, he angrily demands to know why most of the class is absent. The old man smiles on the inside, fully aware that many of them would rather die than sit through a lesson taught by an inferior. Stopping the enemy from getting to his friend, the man disintegrates into ashes. A window pops up saying the B-class villain was successfully destroyed. The greasy rat even went out of his way to spread the word that today's lecture would be handled by Jean. Causality increased by 0.4. Achievement Savior unlocked. Surprisingly, our professor does not seem bothered in the slightest. He confidently stands at the podium and introduces himself as the new spirit techniques instructor. Without missing a beat, Rias shamelessly asks, but she handled it well because the demons got a prophecy about the birth of their natural enemy, whether he truly has what it takes to teach the most elite class in the academy. Our boy responds with a calm smile. They'll keep attacking the academy, so Yun Li and you are going to have to get stronger, saying they will find out soon enough. He even tells the lion, Kim thanks everyone for making it out alive. The news going around is that a demon attacked the Magic Academy. Demi-human that he is free to leave if the class proves beneath him. With that established, he lays down one rule immediately. He tells his students they must never use divine power against humans, under any circumstance. To clarify his reasoning, he explains that divine power was designed to suppress the regeneration abilities of inhibitors. However, humans recover normally after being hurt. But the other girl tells her to go back to bed. The child of the prophecy says she protected her from the guy, but you says she just passed out like an idiot right after. It's just a tiny injury, revealing that its true purpose was always to eliminate invaders. Hearing that, some loudmouth at the back starts trash talking, calling him soft because he supposedly lacks divine power. The brat insists he has every right to use his strength. However, the hell he pleases. Slightly annoyed, Professor Jean invites him to test whether he is truly as weak as claimed. Like they're not even close, so why risk your life like that? Right there in the middle of class, he tells the student to hit him with his strongest move. Yoon says anyone would have done the same. Plus, the kid grins arrogantly, declaring he will never attend class again if the professor so much as scratches him. She once met someone who reached out a hand when she was all alone, and she thinks it would be nice to be that kind of person too. Ever since she made that choice, seizing the opportunity, he conjures a lightning spear. Crackling with energy, even Lord Gita tenses up, worried the classroom might not survive such a reckless attack. Without hesitation, the student launches the spear straight at Jean, kicking up a massive cloud of dust across the room. Everyone assumed the inferior got destroyed, but then, a blade shoots out from the haze and jams into the wall behind him. Shaken up, Yu says she doesn't need anyone's help, and the other girl says that at the very least she can say thank you. Barely missing his ugly mug, Jean calmly states that the sword could have pierced him completely. Yu also says that if it weren't for Kim, Neither of them would be alive right now, if he truly intended to end him. With that he delivers his first lesson of the semester. Never judge someone purely by appearance. Riz watches in silence. Smiling Kim shows up and asks if they're okay. On guard Yu asks why he's there, wondering if that technique even qualified as a spirit art. Professor Jean continues smoothly, explaining that inferiors are labeled that way because they are considered weak. But she's confused. Kim was the one who killed it and he knows that still when he arrived. Then as someone clearly leagues above them, he asks what that would make him. His aura surges to its peak as he answers his own question, that he declares is what you call a teacher. Next he delivers a second lesson. He just landed the final blow, but you thinks taking money you earned with other people's help is super embarrassing, so the two of them can split it. He asks the same kid if he knows the criteria required to activate spirit arts, acting like it is common knowledge. The student answers that it all comes down to vivid imagination. Maybe it was too soon. Interest level went up to level 1. 2,000 points were gained. If you picture something clearly enough, the spirits will carry it out. Professor Jean agrees that imagination matters. The blonde says she's acting like that because she's embarrassed. She's just really proud. And finally, Kim has enough points to buy the dimensional backpack, but adds that there is one critical element they are all missing. He explains that spirits respond to different wavelengths, and they are what really trigger their actions. There are 8 primary wavelengths in total. Among them ignition, discharge, healing and freezing are the 4 most people know. However, gravity control, light control, atmosphere control and spatial manipulation also exist. Lord Gueta nearly chokes seeing him use all 8 of them so casually. With that revelation our boy formally begins his first real lecture. Later that evening he contemplates where to start his investigation into the academy's secrets. The campus is crowded with students at every corner. Maybe he lost his family to those guys too. Meanwhile Kim asks Yoon if she told anyone about that. After the display in class, he is the main topic of discussion. If he wants answers, he needs access to somewhere students are not allowed to enter. On his way he crosses paths with Miria, and more than anything, she wants to understand her power to destroy demons on her own. Compared to the original story, without hesitation she bluntly asks him to admit who he truly is. He responds by asking how he could be anything other than the so-called inferior. Everyone labels him as he concedes. That would make sense, if not for his ability to command all 8 spirit arts effortlessly. Not even most demi-humans are capable of that. Our boy shrugs and tells her it is not that complicated, comparing it to switching tabs between different wavelengths. Of course he knows it's more complex in practice than it sounds. She requests they continue this conversation somewhere private. The moment the barrier went up, he ran to the arena. Was that because of her? Kim's been carrying her a lot, like during the exam and during the attack. Once alone she repeats her question about who he is. This time he claims he is simply a human who was placed in cold sleep beneath Kodama village for a few million years. To humor him she asks what he supposedly did before hibernation. During the exams it was because he trusted her potential, and during the attack he just ran toward where he saw the explosion. Now she looks kind of awkward. Jean answers honestly that he served as a special forces agent for his country, even though millennia have passed, and Kim asks if she thought it was something else. Embarrassed Yoon says it was just a joke, and the boy figured she'd go there because she's innocent. He remembers those days vividly, as if they happened only a few years ago. Curious she presses further, asking why someone who fought for his nation would be sealed away in cold sleep. He feels sad admitting he failed his mission. He truly believed that if he pushed himself far enough. Then the girl says that because of the misunderstanding, she'll give him 7.5 million won. It's to pay for private lessons since now they'll always be together. The kid says he'll raise her right, and realizes these kids have no idea what money is actually worth. He could save everyone but he failed in the end and he lost everything. He also confesses that becoming a professor was not random. He needs the influence of the Alton family. But then our hero gets a notification on his phone. Someone deposited 15 million won. Moving on he asks her where they are headed. She soon leads him to a dusty rundown room, explaining it used to be a storage space where instructors kept their teaching supplies. On one of the shelves an owl statue immediately catches his attention. He asks what her real reason was for bringing him here. so Miria admits she has been investigating the strange, empty space located right next to this storage room. It is far too large to simply be unused, which makes her certain it is hiding something important. First place in the third year is Kim Sang-yoon. In fourth place is Park Min-yi, and first place in the first year is Choi Seo-yoon. Right next to her is the second place Gyeon. Without wasting a second, Professor Jean casually reaches out and grabs the owl statue. She side-eyes him in confusion. Min Ki-yu looks at the boy like he's an enemy. Still Kim knows, being there, wondering why he is petting a dusty old decoration. The moment he twists it slightly, the bookshelves slide apart, revealing a hidden passage leading deeper inside. He calmly congratulates her on being correct. Suddenly Park In-hwan shows up and says that, just because Kim landed the final blow on the demon, he thinks he can sit with them, but the hero met the right requirements. About the existence of a secret room, Miria is left speechless. Nobody can interfere even so. The blonde guy says he can drag him out, unable to understand how he solved the mechanism so quickly. Our professor coolly explains that he noticed the owl was the only clean object in a room. That's enough, Park asks. If the kid even knows how much the special class average dropped, buried under thick layers of dust. After that he tells her to remain behind, while he goes in to investigate the suspicious chamber alone. Surprised, Miria firmly states she will be accompanying him. He reminds her there could be a dangerous invader inside. Yu jumps in and says that, aside from the test at the start of the semester, Kim is better than Park, so Park should shut up because he's the one dragging down the average, and he might not be able to protect her. The blonde makes it clear her skills are not to be underestimated. The asshole says he didn't know the girl was interested in that idiot, but he doesn't listen, and goes in to throw a huge punch right at our boy's face. She confidently claims she stands leagues above everyone else in her class, with only her brother possibly surpassing her skill. Kim reacts fast and grabs his wrist, saying he doesn't think Park can do it. Meanwhile, Park can only feel how strong Kim's grip is. Hearing that he decides to take her at her word, the two of them carefully descend the decrepit staircase, which stretches far deeper than either of them expected, loading his hand up with firepower. But something drops right onto the bully's head. Miria quietly appreciates how convenient it is to command light so effortlessly in total darkness. Jean casually jokes out loud, and right after that, a kick slams into his side and sends him tumbling down the stairs. People start wondering if Park is even alive, that the place feels like the perfect dungeon for monsters to spawn in a fantasy game, leaving the girl confused by his gamer reference. Kim thanks them for the help and realizes it's exactly like the plot. The kick came from Ji Young. Curious again, she brings up his backstory once more. She asks if he already has a suspect in mind, who says he liked Kim's exam. The agents come to the class for special activities. Since hunting down threats was supposedly his specialty, he cannot help but feel amused at how quickly she accepted his unbelievable story, and the Scar guy wonders if he hit too hard. Before that, as a small reward for her trust, he reveals that he has a strong suspicion Lord Rudman might be involved somehow. She immediately asks why he is so certain, but Diak explains that the demons are hiding. There are a few suspicious spots. John says. Professor Jean explains that, while the man appears charismatic during lectures, there is something deeply unsettling about him when he is alone. They usually work separately unless they get orders from the king. And it's also weird. The demons manage to infiltrate the school so easily. In those quiet moments, the greasy bastard gives off the vibe of someone definitely plotting something shady. He explains that this kind of behavior is common among people who are completely different from the persona they present to the world. Someone on the inside must be helping, and his mission is to work with the school to find the demons. And the infiltrator, he introduces himself on stage, saying he's from the Special Forces and was sent by the association. Choi asks if the class will be about controlling terrorism, and John says yes. On top of that, he found it pretty obvious that the man is far terribly observant. For a teacher, Miria admits she originally suspected Lord Gita, adding that chickens like them can't go into real combat from now on. Under his guidance, they'll search the monster appearance zone. It could be dangerous, so if they find anything. Instead, Jean dismisses her theory. pointing out that someone with zero control over his emotions could never orchestrate anything truly sinister. To her surprise, he even goes as far as to say that the wrinkly, old nutcase is probably decent at heart. At last the two reach the bottom of the staircase, but Jong knows it's not dangerous. It's just a secret training area for the special forces. Still, there's a dungeon there that's already been cleared, so they can identify suspects using magic cameras. Special classes are freer to do activities, which opens into a massive dust-filled hall. Miria's eyes widen in shock at the enormous labyrinth, hidden directly beneath the academy grounds. That's probably what Jong is thinking. It's a fact there's a demon at the school. Suddenly Jean stops walking because he is just as stunned. Not even in his wildest imagination did he expect to find Kagura's laboratory hidden in a place like this. When Jean looks at the doors protected by nanomachines, which people of this era would simply call spirits, he becomes certain that this must truly be Kagura's laboratory. Miria grows nervous, because even though she had been searching for a long time, but maybe just inserting himself into the story will create new variables for the group, she never managed to discover this massive door that had been hidden beneath the academy the entire time. Jean explains to her, and what ended up happening was Choi got paired with Kim. She thinks the boy is disappointed he got stuck with her in the group. Anyone would do anything to be with her. That ordinary people would need a special access key to open such a door, but he doesn't seem happy with someone at her level. Even so, it's Kim who's bothered by her. He remembers how Hakama inherited the key back in Kodama village, and he believes that someone in this place must have inherited a similar key. In the same way, however, not the other way around. He tells them to start moving. One student says he also wanted a chill date with a pretty girl. The other team is Lee Seo Jun and Yu Era. That idiot is in love with Choi. Jean already knows that he himself automatically holds full access, so he calmly raises his hand forward. The lock system immediately recognizes him as the individual with the highest level of authority. She's got both talent and looks. Then Lee says there's someone there from a good family too, and Yu gets furious and quickly unlocks the door for him. As the large gates slowly open, Jean wonders if the one trying to overthrow the rulers of this country, and the crybaby says the girl is different from the red-eyed one. The other group is Shin Young-jun and John Men. He, in an awkward mood, might also be someone who had access to this place. Meanwhile, Miria still stands there stunned, unable to process that something like this existed right beneath their academy. All along she then asks Jean if he truly did not need a key. But if those two are unhappy, it's more comfortable for her. Kim was being friendly with Lee, even though he was the worst in the school, and Jean casually remarks that ancient humans are special in that regard, and now he's in the special class. The guy is seriously suspicious. Miria finally begins to believe that Jin's words might be true, and quietly follows him deeper underground into the hidden lab. Choi's curious about him, and the guy wonders if she's about to drill a hole into his head. Inside, they discover several corruptors locked inside large metal cages, and strangely all of them remained completely calm, without showing any sign of going wild. Jean remembers the corruptors that the bandits had locked up earlier, and recalls how they also stayed unusually quiet until the moment they were finally released. However, the thing that troubles him the most is the question of how anyone could transport such massive corruptors all the way into a place like this. He knows that look is definitely, "I've got ulterior motives" at this point. The girl was desperate to recruit Lee without being noticed. Miria admits that her brother's suspicion about this academy might have been correct after all. She suggests that they quietly stay hidden there and wait, so they can ambush whoever is responsible for this, since the culprits will surely return to this place sooner or later. Jean, however, and keep the original story on track. But then Choi starts saying, Kim looks more impressive every time she sees him. He went from being humiliated to getting stronger still. Tells her that instead of standing around and waiting, they should quickly seal the academy and deal with these corruptors. First, Miria argues, forcing his way into the special class could be bad for him. If he draws too much attention, he might start making enemies, that they cannot allow the mastermind behind this plan to escape. But Jean explains that protecting the students must come first, because if these corruptors start rampaging, it will put every life in the academy at risk. When he mentions that, her brother would probably make the same decision, the girl finally agrees with his approach. She's kind to everyone, but only to keep people close and raise her own value. Jean then adds that he has a bad feeling about all of this, and whenever he gets that feeling, that fake perfection was a lonely survival method she learned on her own in high society. His instincts usually turn out to be correct. He says that he will investigate the laboratory a little further. Confused, Kim asks what she means by enemies, and Choi brings up what happened that day himself and asks her to go back up and bring her brother, so the academy can be placed under curfew, and the students can be protected. No one said it out loud, but besides Park, there are probably others who aren't happy about him getting in, and he says he doesn't care. After sending her back to the surface, Jean moves deeper into the underground facility, hoping to discover some useful clues. Meanwhile, on the surface, the skinny rat is being mocked for losing to the new tutor. Even so, he still calls Jean an inferior species, and she does, just nodding along. She says she kind of gets why the teachers like him, and blames him for ruining his reputation. The headmaster then walks over to Lord Gita, and tells the skinny rat to stop making strange movements, because the students are starting to feel uncomfortable. She gets publicly humiliated by the headmaster. He shoves Choi aside and instantly attacks with mana. A fire spear gets thrown at them. It's an ambush. Before being asked about Lord Rudman, who has been missing since that morning, our hero asks if he still hasn't gotten his head on straight. Park says he's giving him one last chance. The headmaster feels overwhelmed. The fat man's absence only makes her more worried. If he values his life, keep his head down. At the academy, Kim asks. Just then she notices a dark cloud forming above the academy, and wonders what has just happened. Meanwhile, Miria rushes toward the surface, but as she exits the door, with real intent, hidden magic cameras are watching everything. Somewhere else, she comes face to face with Lord Rudman, the fat man who had been missing since the morning, now wearing a purely evil expression that clearly shows he is up to no good. Back in the lab, Jean examines some strange, reddish portals that appear to pulse as if they are alive. He wonders whether this thing is actually alive, and if Kagura is the one who created it. Jean then finds the message cube Kagura left behind, along with the nanomachine's injector. The ancient human hopes the cube will contain clues to help him understand and resolve the current situation. Choi starts charging a strong spell, gathering mana, and yells at them to take their fight to training. He quickly activates the cube and a hologram of Kagura appears, casually holding a coffee. Kagura had already expected Jean to reach this facility, and Park needs to get over his inferiority complex. That just makes the blonde even angrier, because in his mind, before anyone else, since this lab is the closest to where he would awaken, everyone's taking that bastard's side, and he smashes up the ground. Watching all this, Beck notices one of her magic circles got destroyed. The DOC explains that in this lab, he was developing a device that humans had never accomplished, even hundreds of millions of years ago, and that a small portion of the device's power has been sealed. John stands up and says they promise no student would get hurt. She yells that he's going to blow the whole operation over a childish fight, and he tells her to keep checking and call him if anything happens. Within the injector for Jean to use, he praises himself for this achievement, before finally revealing that the mind-blowing device he is referring to, who've caused trouble before, plus Choi from a major magic family. Meanwhile, Choi is putting up a magic wall, is actually a teleportation device. Never in his wildest imagination did he think Kagura was capable of building something on this scale. The blonde brat screams that Kim should have stayed a clown. Who does that kid think he is trying to reach his level? But now everything starts clicking into place. Argus mentioned that invaders appeared across the city out of nowhere. Alarm bells start ringing in his head, because whoever owns this device is likely behind everything, especially with an entire zoo's worth of monsters locked up down here. Then, he notices something off about the mad scientist's recorded message. Before he came back, he saw what Park did to people in the shadows. Since Park was basically an extra, the original teleportation device was a pure blue color. That is true. Then what the hell is this red device standing in front of him now? Just as the nearby clock strikes 12, the device activates with a violent hum. Jean steadies himself, bracing for whatever nightmare is about to crawl out of it. Instead, every invader inside the cages instantly vanishes into thin air. Up on the surface, Argus and the Holy Knights witness their worst nightmare. Kim slams his skull into the ground. It's honestly crazy the guy survived. Unfolding in real time, hundreds of invaders rain down from the sky onto the royal capital, looking like they just dropped into a battle royale match. Back underground, the greasy, fat man turns toward Miria with the creepiest smile imaginable. He mockingly asks why she seems so tense and impatient. Miria coldly tells the pig responsible for all this to step aside, unless he is asking for a fight. Genuinely surprised, Lord Rutman admits it's gonna end badly, and Park agrees. He just begs pathetically for them to keep this fight a secret. He suspected she had been investigating him for quite some time. Unfortunately for her, she simply figured it out too late, when Miria demands to know what that means. Smiling, the young guy feels relieved that he fell for it. That's when Beck sees the student running out of the training area. He calmly declares that the day of judgment has arrived, the balding potato size, revealing he originally planned to delay this event, but the two rats snooping around his laboratory forced his hand. From now on, he'll have the special forces' full attention. Park runs like a maniac thinking it's Kim attacking him, but then he realizes it's some older guy chasing him back there. More specifically, he realized that the real threat to his grand plan is Jean. Kim figures that should be enough to draw attention, and shouldn't mess with the story too much. Every instinct in his gut warned him that the new instructor would become the biggest headache imaginable, just like Miria's brother, without needing confirmation, and she shoots back that he looked like he was overheating, and she points out he just beat Park rank 5 while being rank 72. He already knows Jean was the one who uncovered the hidden passage. Deciding he has wasted enough time talking, he concludes it is best to eliminate all witnesses right here. All humble, our hero says he never would have won. Miria almost laughs at the idea that he believes he can defeat her. A disturbingly demonic grin spreads across Rutman's face as he boasts about the unimaginable power he has gathered. What he does not realize is that a girl is quietly creeping up behind him, with a pot larger than his own head. She just thanks him and her interest level goes up to 1. She says she didn't have a great impression of him at the start of the semester, because it seemed like he was desperate for attention. Miria nervously sweats, torn between fear for the girl and doubt over whether this ridiculous plan will actually succeed. Without hesitation, Hakama swings with everything her tiny arms can muster, and smashes the fat bastard's large, filled head. Miria stares at her in shock. So Kim asks what he is now. Then Choi says he's fun, and the boy remembers the clown talent. She says they've rested enough and should get going, but Kim's still tired, she says, and wants to know how she even found this place. Hakama hurriedly explains that she came looking for Jean. There is absolute chaos outside. They need to find something that will actually get them result, when at the same time something jumps at her. It's a huge ugly snake, and it will be impossible to save everyone without their guardian. On the way, she ran into another new student, Kudo. The girl mentioned that their professor entered the storage room. Without wasting a second, Kim already has a spear in his hand, wondering if it's a training monster. Not long ago, the new girl feels slightly guilty about knocking out a teacher, but Hakama insists the creep deserved every bit of it. Besides, since he never saw their faces from behind. Choi smiles and looks to the side, just like the outsider was expecting. The guy shows up. Lee Seo-jun asks if everyone's okay. They could easily pin the blame on the blonde princess. Things go south at that moment. As he puts his sword away, he says he's been walking around trying to help the others. Jean finally reaches the top of the stairs. Concerned, he asks what happened, only to spot a floppy pig on the floor like a fallen bowling pin. Kim quickly snaps him out of it, and informs him that the city outside, it's easy, and she adds that if he signs a contract with her family, he'll shine even more. The young guy says he'll think about it later. Has descended into complete chaos. He is not surprised at all. Kim realizes the place and the people are perfect, so the main event should happen now, because he already knows there is only one destination. The lab's invaders could have been sent to. The protagonist discovering the secret spot, just bringing Choi near the dungeon. Miria turns pale as the realization hits her, and the three of them rush outside without wasting another second. Fires rage across the city, and nearly half of it lies in ruins. Terrified citizens scatter in every direction as hell breaks loose. Among all the invading creatures, one monster that looks like a hulking Vilgax stands out as the strongest. By far, seeing her beloved home reduced to this state leaves Miria completely speechless. Meanwhile, Jean feels the weight of failure crush his chest again. Lee realizes it's a hidden stage and stuff like that doesn't happen off in a dungeon, thinking he should have destroyed the device when he had the chance. Hakama snaps him back to reality again. She points at the massive tentacle monster, which is charging up. a devastating attack aimed straight at the royal palace. Determined to atone for his mistake, Jean uses the injection Kagura left behind for him. After using it, he gains a toned-down version of teleportation. Lee and Choi can team up and beat the boss. This episode is necessary for the protagonist. The mad scientist had explained that the nanomachines only store enough energy to activate it once every 24 hours. On top of that, its range is supposedly limited to a short distance within the user's line of sight. However, those restrictions apply to ordinary users. To get even more attention, after getting an S-class weapon, but the most important part is Choi more mature now, becoming his companion. The two of them can handle it easily on their own, so the hero suggests they just fight the challenge. And Jean is anything but ordinary. Someone of his caliber can practically teleport. Lee refuses, saying there are too many variables, and they need to tell the special forces first, as far as his eyes are capable of seeing. Without hesitating even a second, Kim can barely believe it. He tries to grab the protagonist's phone. He vanishes and reappears directly in the path of the massive laser beam, just before it can strike the royal palace. When she touches the water, something happens. Lee gets worried and Kim yells her name. It's the Ghost Witch B class trying to possess the girl. The two of them run toward her shouting, trying to snap her out of it. The witch says it belongs to her now. Kim realizes that if the monster attacked first, then something went wrong with the original storyline again, and the monster completely dissolves, slipping into the portal and taking Choi with it. Lee shouts, trying to understand what just happened. How a witch kidnapped her. Our hero says they have to save her, but Lee wants to call the special forces. If they don't go right now, she'll die because the monster absorbs mana first, and then everything else. They have to handle this, just the two of them, and they have to do it now. Kim puts a hand on Lee's shoulder, and Lee realizes there's no other choice. Determined, the two of them sprint toward the portal. Meanwhile, Jong is holding Park back, asking what he does and what his goal is, but the blonde guy doesn't know anything, which makes the older one ask why he suddenly started running. Park knows it'll be humiliating to tell the truth, so the agent says he won't go easy on him since he didn't confess. Park and Hwan, second year, rank 5 at the Magic Academy, suspected of conspiring with demons, is now in custody. John calls back and tells her he's detained the suspect, but she says something else is going on. 3 students went into the modified dungeon to train calmly. The agent says it was deactivated, so it's basically just a cave, and Beck explains it's been confirmed. There's a hidden phase happening inside the dungeon, which leaves Jong shocked. Inside, it's a full-on blizzard. Lee thinks the witch is using ice mana stolen from Choi to power up the area. He was practically freezing when Kim puts a coat on him and says, if he stays nice and warm, it'll be way better. Our hero knew it'd be cold, so he brought warm clothes stored in his dimensional backpack. Confused, Lee asks how the kid managed to get a backpack that costs millions, and the other one says it was from stocks. This coat boosts cold resistance by 20, but then Kim spots Choi somewhere. She's calling to them, asking for help. The protagonist tells them to hurry up and get out of there, then asks which way the exit is. Quickly, Kim fires a mana orb at Choi. She throws up an ice shield and says, he caught on fast, no fun. The Ghost Witch is controlling Choi. It was the killing intent detector that saved him, and to save the girl they'll have to beat the monster first. In a creepy voice, the beast talks about the child's mana being cold and delicate. Once it absorbs it all, the two of them are next. Kim knows the witch is undead, so she's weak to Lee's light attribute, so Lee goes in first. The hero stays in the back, launching concentrated blue mana orbs. As long as that thing is controlling Choi's body, a first-year rank 1, specialty in manifestation and subspecialty in enhancement, the only thing they can do is keep defending. The possessed girl's attack almost hits Kim, but Lee blocks it with his sword, already moving in for a direct strike. But she turns her ice sword into a shield, and manages to deflect the protagonist's almost perfect attack. The witch asks if the kid is holding back, as it looks like he's fighting a little girl, and adds that all his attacks are pathetic. A volley of ice daggers shoots toward Lee, and he realizes the switch between offense and defense is insanely fast. Plus, the ice works really well with the environment. Still, some of those daggers go toward Kim. He barely dodges, but then finds himself surrounded by sharp ice like a frozen prison. Possessed Choi says, the kid is trapped, of course. Our boy finds a way out, and still manages to dodge the endless icy blasts. Then Lee says it's time for him to say what he's supposed to do, because he must have a plan. Kim explains they need to find the witch's real body, because if it's in danger, she'll let Choi go. The protagonist points out the whole place is covered in ice and snow. The kid needs to tell him where it is, but our hero doesn't know everything, and remembers that in the original story, Lee destroyed the witch by slicing up the whole area. He grabs his potion and says, the other guy can handle it now. He's got 10 minutes of faster mana, so he starts making a bunch of orbs. It's not the outsider who can destroy her, it's Lee Seo-jun. Meanwhile, Jong questions Park about it just being a simple fight, and that he acted weird because he was embarrassed about losing, and the blonde agrees, making the guard realize he should investigate better before acting. Then he asks if the others had anything against him crying. The jerk says he really doesn't know anything. Deok says the agent ensured the student's safety, and Jong takes the blame. Nobody expected the hidden phase. The leader asks if there's any chance of rescuing the students, and the other one says they'd first have to try to open the entrance. That doesn't work. All they can do is pray they clear the area and make it out alive. At the cave entrance, Professor Lee tells all the students to wait. Outside, someone comments that if they get stuck in a hidden phase, there's no way out. Yu thinks he still has questions for Kim, so if anything happens to them, the kid won't get away with it. Inside, Kim keeps working with his orbs, and Lee's like, how the hell is he supposed to deal with this? The outsider explains that in here, he can use as much power as he wants. The witch notices one of their mana levels changed, and wonders what they're trying to pull. More ice weapons get launched at them, this time from behind, and they shatter everything with their spells. Then Kim yells that the other guy doesn't need to hide his power. It's fine to show his real strength. Lee realizes the only time he ever used his sword with everything he had was during the demon attack. He held back even during the exams because if he goes too hard, someone could get hurt, and Lee realizes Kim noticed that subtle difference. The protagonist tells them both to go all out. The witch laughs and tells the brats to come on and try. Lee says that since Kim's putting that much faith in him, he's got to live up to it. Then the witch is shocked by how much light mana attribute there is, and Kim yells for the protagonist to destroy the whole dungeon. The monster's real body is in danger. Our hero fires off a blast straight at the monster. It hits her right in the chest, and the outsider says she left Choi's body. Meanwhile, Lee is surrounded by light mana ready to strike. The ghost witch screams that she won't let those miserable humans get out of there, so Kim says there's no reason to keep her alive. Protagonist lands his biggest hit and slices the monster into pieces. Focused Lee knows he destroyed her. Outside, support mages try to open the portal, but only 2 of the entrance opens, like not even a mosquito could fit through. Sadly, that's the best they can do. Even the top mages couldn't open it any more than that. Meanwhile, Jong is thinking that even if the team chews him out, he'll have to take responsibility. The Scar guy explains the whole situation, but to the man's surprise, they ignore him, saying Lee will be out soon. He wants to know what that's supposed to mean, and he gets his answer a second later. A huge beam of light shoots up into the sky. People start wondering if a boss showed up, but Yu recognizes that light mana attribute. It's Lee realizing his sword can't handle all his mana. Looks like it's over. The witch got defeated and she left behind a glowing sword as a reward, one that boosts mana and regenerates on its own. Kim tells him to take it because he did the most, and he needs one anyway, but Lee wants to share part of it with the other guy. The outsider isn't interested. He just says he'll take care of Choi while the kid goes to grab the reward. When Lee holds it, he realizes it's S-class, and thinks it's weird that Kim would pass up something like that. The kid earned 2,000 points, but he's focused on Choi, who's got severe mana exhaustion. She's not at the level to fight on that scale. It's the side effect of having her power forcibly drained. Least of all the items he found into his coat, and he asks what Kim's planning to do. Kim says he wants to help her recover. Then he gives her an ice spirit heart, which restores mana and boosts the ice attribute. That makes her slowly open her eyes, and the hero asks if she's okay. The girl freaks out and asks why they're looking at her like that. Satisfied, Lee says her energy came back fast. Kim says the girl's full of life. Choi wonders where the hell she is. It's a long story. The outsider explains it's a hidden stage, and Lee beat the boss to save her. Confused, Choi thinks nobody their age has ever done that before. Then the exit portal opens. Everyone's happy, and Lee says he never thought life could be so beautiful. Before they leave, Kim asks the 2 of them for help. He can't walk because he's got mana exhaustion. The moment Choi woke up, the guy collapsed. This time he managed to time the potion's duration perfectly. When this whole incident is over, the ones who deserve the honor won't be him. It'll be Lee Seo-jun and Choi Seo-yoon. Really has to be those two. And the three of them leave carrying Kim. The youngest person in history to clear a hidden stage is Lee. And once again he's got the whole world's attention. The Blue Moon sword he got was evaluated and has 2 top-tier options. Even for an S-rank item. The Major's newspaper published an article about the protagonist's genius-level skills. And the whole world started noticing him. After Park's interrogation, it became clear the blonde guy wasn't with the demons. But his bullying stories got exposed and the asshole got punished hard. From now on that annoying guy won't be a problem anymore. There were a few twists, but things are basically back on the story's original track. The fact that the special activities were actually an operation will stay secret, and Choi is going to use that to get closer to Lee. And calming Yoon down was kind of a pain. She thought her teacher was seriously hurt, while the outsider was thinking about what to do next. Choi interrupted him. She says she heard something interesting from Lee, so she came to thank him. The protagonist told Kim that she was the one who suggested saving the girl and that she fought really well back there. Totally flustered, the kid insists it was the other guy, which leaves Choi confused about why he doesn't want the credit. Then with a threatening look, he adds that it was Lee who destroyed the ghost witch. Choi leaves with a smile saying that if that's how it is, then fine, and says goodbye. Her interest level goes up to level 2 and Kim gets 2,000 points. Things are getting complicated. He'll have to handle the next incident better. After that we see a slim woman running on a treadmill. Our boy is at the school gym now, and he realizes that because he was near Lee when they cleared the hidden stage, he got a ton of points, so he bought the secret trait, evolution and adaptation, for 50,000 points. Now he handles the cold better and his night vision is way better. Doesn't sound like much, but it boosts a bunch of basic skills. In the original story, it was the trait of the top second-year student John Min-ji, but that probably doesn't matter much. Just then 2 guys call out to Kim Seon-woo. They ask why he's there and he says he's just taking care of his body. Lee says he sounds like an old man, but Shin points at other people. They're saying the protagonist always starts Mondays with bench press, and that he got strong through tons of training and effort. Shin says the others aren't even close, and we see a flashback of Yu's powers. The brown-haired guy says she's insane, and that he'll show everyone what real firepower looks like. Excited Kim says that's good for her, because he knows she's the type who doesn't give up on a goal. But then Lee says it's weird that teacher Jang Ansel isn't there today. The guy's always in the gym when he doesn't have classes, and Shin says he's patrolling the school. It's a secret, but apparently they found a body near the school. Shocked Lee says it was a demon attack. Shin isn't scared though, because the genius will protect them. The outsider thinks demons could attack anytime, since the infiltrator is still out there. And more specifically, it's not a human traitor. It's an actual demon. Park Min-e, ranked 4th in the 3rd year, says Lee sweats a lot and she hands him a towel to dry off. Our hero is suspicious. Little Shin says she looks beautiful today and she praises him for it. Then the protagonist thanks her for the towel, and she says she's always cheering for him, but her gaze is weirdly sinister. The night before, she was draining everything she could from some poor human, pressing her sharp fangs right into the man's neck. Turns out she's a B-class demon named Jong-e, and the only daughter of Jong-han. After feeding on the human, she says she didn't expect him to show up. He must be planning to attack the school again. It's that damn Lord Cheon-hae, who only came to check how the infiltrator is doing. After all, her father died and she was left alone. The villain wants to keep a close eye on her. Jong says she'd like to play with him a bit more, but Sean says if word gets out, they'll get caught. The Lord asks how things are at the school, and she looks bored with her identity. She can't even get close to Ji-hyung, and Hae-young told her not to take revenge on Kim. Every day she's forced to look at the kids who took her father down. She asks him what he thinks that's been like for her, and Ji-hyung says that among those kids, Lee Seo-jun is the one people are talking about right now. During the attack, the boy was suspected of being the child of prophecy. The moment the demon barrier vanished, and that guy showed up right after, it looked suspicious, but after her report, he became sure the child of prophecy is definitely Lee Seo-jun. Excited Jang asks if she can end it with her own hands, but Sean thinks she's not capable still. The Lord doesn't understand the pain of wanting revenge, but not being able to take even a single bite. for revenge and for the good of the clan. She'll wipe the boy out. A bearded guy says that's exactly the mindset. Jang hadn't even noticed that person's presence. He says she's turned out pretty well, even though she's still new. Bowing, Sean says he never imagined the demon would come there in person, and the other guy replies that he just wants to see what his subordinate looks like. The young girl's power is still weak, but her attitude is good, so he'll accept Jiang Yi as one of his subordinates. She'll join the attack to eliminate the child of prophecy, as ordered by the king, and there's no way she can refuse the offer, says the king's right-hand man. Meanwhile, at the fifth entrance of the Buccaneers in dungeon, Yoon is holding a mana orb in her hands. Her powers look way more polished now. She throws it at all the monsters around her, and the ugly little freaks get terrified and immediately run off. Excited, she asks if it was good, and Kim says she's improved a lot. Now she just needs to focus on mastering that form. Yoon's surprised he found a dungeon just for her to train in, but the outsider says it was luck, which is true. In his past life as a C-rank mage, he found this dungeon by accident. It's a place that never showed up in the original story, only he knows about it. The area is full of demon-type monsters, so it's the perfect environment to strengthen Yun's willpower. Kim asks what she was thinking about while she was using her power, and she says that when she fought you, she was thinking about wanting to protect the people around her. The most important thing when you're dealing with destructive power is willpower shown through purpose and determination. And Yun's purpose is Kim. She wants to be like him, and he tells her they should keep training like this every weekend, so he can get her into the special class. But Yoon is totally seeing it as a date, getting to be alone with him on weekends. Before the exam she was ranked 82nd, now she's 52nd. If she keeps improving like this, she'll end up like she did in the original story. Kim's eyes light up, and he figures he needs to deal with the Jiang Yi problem. In the original plot she went after Lee for revenge, and she pulled a bunch of schemes like a classic villain. But now the one who took down her father was him and Zhang, so why did she go to Lee first? Something's off, and before she can cause any damage, the outsider decides he's going to make the first move. Zhang recognizes Kim as the person Lee rescued during the hidden phase. She heard the boy wanted to tell her something, but Kim knows he's been caught, and he says it's something really important. To deal with this obstacle, this is the only way. He hands her a book and says he wants to be close to her. A confession attack first. He needs to create a situation where it's just the two of them. Jiang is disgusted by him, which earns him the achievement first rejection. 1,500 points total. It went terribly. He got shut down hard. The demon woman says Kim isn't her type, so it'd be weird, and she storms off, thinking she'd never date some mere human. Our poor guy knows he's human, but come on, he's not that ugly that someone should be grossed out. But Shin was watching and felt bad for him. Another 500 points, exactly what Kim wanted. The kid insists he wasn't spying. He was just passing by. Confessing to her is worth it, even if he gets rejected. Even though he hates being the center of attention, Kim figures it's because she's a demon, then asks if Shin has started the classical magic theory assignment. The kid says he's good at physical stuff, but theory just won't go into his head, so the outsider offers to let him use his work as a reference. But there's a condition. He asks if the kid uses the school message board. People start saying that, since Kim couldn't get attention as the bottom-rank student, he's trying this now, and 247 people are interested in him. 1,500 points, just like he planned. On the board it says that Park, the prettiest girl in the academy, is his and nobody can touch her. The teachers are finding the whole thing hilarious. Meanwhile, Yoon is mad that Kim prefers older girls. Yu says it's obvious the boy didn't post it. Someone's just messing with him. And Shin is thinking, yeah, it wasn't him this time, whispering. He says he did his best to post it like he was told, but it looks like it totally backfired. Kim says it wasn't the result he expected, but he still got his message across. He knew that if anything romance-related involved Shin, the whole school would hear about it, so he just says thanks. Meanwhile, Jang is furious because she didn't want things to turn out like this. Our boy might have avoided being labeled the absolute worst kid in school, but people still see him as someone who just wants attention. If the demon gets linked to him, it'll be hard to hunt people down or hurt Lee. And Kim doesn't exactly have a reputation to lose. Still, the way those girls are reacting is kind of over the top. One girl says that when you're pretty and nice, only weirdos cling to you. Pissed off, Jang knows she needs to kill Lee, but thanks to that brat Kim, nobody takes their eyes off her. If he got the chance, he'd set up an ambush and finish her off. But for now he has no choice but to back off, because for Lee something way more important is about to happen. It's time to close the American Museum of Antiquities, and a blonde guy says the night patrol starts. After checking for anything unusual, this is the soul vessel, a sacred relic with the power to seal souls. 13 years ago the world was suffering at the hands of John, the worst terrorist group in history, but Kim Jin-chul, the association president, drove them back after an intense battle and killed their leader. Jin-chul-woo. Among the spoils was the soul vessel, which was donated to the American Museum of Antiquities, just sitting there no problem. Still someone brings up the sacred relic, the most important piece in the whole exhibit. A mysterious, intimidating woman in black walks in. An employee says she must have missed the sign. The exit is that way, but she keeps going, saying it's amazing to see something like that up close. It's way too beautiful to be trapped in a place like this. The blonde guy warns her. It's extremely dangerous and can only be kept by someone qualified. But she says only one person used to be qualified. The employee snaps that the association warned them terrorists would try to use it. Mystic power should be used for good. The blonde woman says he's wrong. Great power should be used for a great purpose. They're just hoarding it. He yells for the guards to kick this potential criminal out immediately, but the guard shows up already knocked out. A woman asks if Scar is bored, and the big guy says everyone was weak and he wants to fight someone strong. The employee says they were all a class mages and realizes the security system didn't even alert. A girl with a red scythe slices through the relic's protective glass. She says they agreed to just threaten the guy and steal it. Maybe the plan changed. The blonde guy drops to the floor, wondering who these sons of bitches are. Scar says they may have taken their god, but they can't break their will. The blonde girl remembers being called damn terrorist. Now he'll pay for insulting their god. At the last second, the employee realizes they're John and everything blows apart. Meanwhile, the students get the news the terrorist attack was carried out by John, a cult that was thought to be wiped out. Even though the security footage was damaged, they assume the leader of the attack is someone named Bert. Terrified, you can barely move, and Yoon points out she's gone pale. She says she feels nauseous and is going to lie down. Our Kim knows it's about to start the first battle against the villain group. John Bert is extremely pleased. She thinks her photo came out great, and Jean says he could barely cover her face, and they went through all that trouble to disable security for nothing. The girl says some clueless idiot insulted their god. Natasha says that's why she let him atone with his life, and Scar thinks it all ended way too quietly. Back in the day, they would have blown up the whole block before leaving, but Jean says times have changed and doing that now is way too risky. Natasha tells the idiot that Special Forces and the Dawnblade are still hunting them, but he says he can handle all of them. Then Bert says they should find somewhere quieter for a while. Like Jean said, maybe this time they rushed it. Better to go to Korea for a bit. Scar loves that because there are strong idiots there to fight. And Natasha wants to go to the Soul Magic Arena, but Jean wants to avoid running into Kim Jin-chul. The leader isn't worried, because nobody expects them to show up on their turf, and she has something to check there too. The blonde guy asks about Lee, and Bert says he knows what that kid means to them. Then the girl in red says, the brat's been getting into a lot of trouble. What's Beck even doing in security? Scar says a crisis makes a man, and the leader says that's it. Now they prep the passports and fake IDs, and tell Beck they'll be here soon. It's been a while since the outsider showed up as Kim Jin-woo. It should be safe to move now, since Ryong's interest has probably died down. More importantly, before fighting John, he needs to boost his stats. Bored Cyan showed up early. Like always, she could have had someone deliver it, but it had been a while since the two of them had seen each other. There's the item he asked for. Sacred herb potions and high durability combat boots. They're S rank, they fit the user's body and they cut stamina used by 20. Kim realizes he's got two choices. The price must be way higher than other items in the same class. While they eat, Cyan says she didn't want to give some basic gift. Her motto is never let your customer down. Cantia is the name of the restaurant where Lee in the original story almost passed out after just one bite. Kim wants to know if it's really that good. As the golden pasta falls apart, the mushroom aroma from the sauce spreads with the juices. Then the Hanwoo roast beef inside mixes with the red wine sauce, setting off an explosion of flavor. Crispy on the outside, tender on the inside. Sayan says seeing a reaction like that makes it all worth it. The outsider says he can't accept treatment this generous without giving something back. but she says that's not how the relationship works. But our guy insists he's got something better than money. Kim says she looked kind of worried earlier, maybe because of that terrorist threat. Deposit $2 billion in 3 days or Hansung goes down. Sayan says that info never leaked. How could he possibly know? Of course he says. He has his ways, the kid's right. Ever since the news about John, things have been rough, and she's still busy dealing with her brother's power play. Luckily the person threatening her has no connection to John. It's actually Jo Sung-hun, an underworld alchemist, some criminal trying to squeeze money out of Hansung. Now that they're on top, he tells Sian to check the financial situation of her security team, and she'll find someone who's working with an alchemist. He's basically a minor character who barely gets mentioned, just there to set up an event, so it's fine to bring it up. She's shocked at how Kim knows high-level info. Even she doesn't, and his source is a total mystery, so she calls him Kim Jin-woo, saying she doesn't know who he works for, but maybe he'd like to work with her. With someone like him by her side, it'll be hard to lose to her brother. The pay will be in the millions and the benefits will be great. The outsider says he's not doing it for special treatment. He just wants to help her. But Sayan doesn't find it fun to win him over that easily, so she suggests another dinner later, and she'll come back with even better terms. Our guy finds her offer tempting, but if he accepts, he'll be stepping away from helping Lee with his new boots. He can walk in the air for 5 seconds every 2 minutes. There are 3 options. Good thing there was a useful item in the hidden stage. The lunatic jumps off a building just for fun, landing on the one right next to it. Always good to practice first. In magic class the professor says, there'll be a theoretical research project in pairs next week. Shin asks for a bit more time, but gets denied, so Kim decides to use the outsider perk to finish it in a day, and get some rest. But who would be a good partner? Right away Yu comes up to him and says they're together. The students get nervous that the 2 best theory people are pairing up. That makes the girl furious and she scares everyone off. She asks if Kim has a problem with it, but he says no, not understanding why she suddenly wants to talk. And Yu tells him to meet her after school in the training area. The outsider realizes this works out, because he needed to check on Yu at some point anyway. But there, she pins him against the wall and demands he tell her his secrets, and says there's no point playing dumb because she knows his real identity. Our guy is completely confused now.